Oh my gosh. We're live, Pablo. We're here.
Live! Oh my god, man. I'm really excited for today. Have no clue.
It's one of these days where we're doing a nice deep dive continuation on other content we've done before, right? Like we did this session at Build showing off all the cool new things you can do with GitHub Copilot to modernize applications. And the feedback we heard was 45 minutes wasn't enough. We need to go through more, you know? And I think this is our opportunity to actually dive in with some of our friends and show Copilot modernization is more than just, hey, I need to get my app to .NET 10, right?
Yeah, and here's the thing. Modernization has been such a hard task for a long time, and AI empowered us to solve, I don't say solve this problem, because as you can see, we're going to have tons of things we need to do to make an amazing app even with that. But that's the thing. It empowers you to do it faster, quicker, and, with much less architectural delay. It is incredible what AI can do today, Jeff.
And the speed is such a key part of this, the speed and the quality, because if you can modernize your app faster, not deploy it, but modernize it, that means that you can start reviewing it sooner and have more assurance that, you know what, when you do need to do a second pass because it didn't get some things right, you can iterate faster and take what was months to update and deploy, take that down to days, weeks.
Yeah. Folks, I will do one thing, a very nice dynamic that I really love to do, which is tell where you are. We want to know from where you are in this big world, right? Because not only is the World Cup happening right now, but we want to know from you as well. What do you think about modernization and any feedback you may have? Please go to the YouTube comments. I'm going to point in direction because I never know. Maybe here.
They're over there. And here's the thing. So I live outside Philadelphia, and we hosted, it was Ivory Coast and Ecuador. I was in town for dinner on Sunday night, and the Ecuadorian fans were just all over town having a great time. And I felt so excited for them, and they lost 1-0. Like, oops. So, what can I tell you? I love seeing, oh my gosh, I see Copenhagen and Vancouver and Italy and Johannesburg. This is great. And Westeros? I don't think.
I do have a question for you. There is anyone from Cabo Verde? Because we need to know, the epic match that happened with Spain. 4 people from Spain. 4 Bruno Capuano, right?
Yes. Yes. So, hello, how you doing there? JD Danilko says, hello, Pablo and Fritz in Columbus, Ohio. Good to see you.
Good to see you, my friend.
So, we've got the experts, the program managers for a lot of these different products that all come together under the banner of modernization that are going to be joining us throughout the day today. Let me go over. Can we go over to the slide with the list of speakers? There we go. So we've got a great group of speakers joining us throughout the day today, talking about all these different components that make up your modernization experience, because we know that getting your app moving forward isn't just moving to .NET 10. It's also the database. It's also the Windows applications, the Azure features as you move along the way. So we've got experts from across the board that are going to help us with that. Let me see, a bunch of folks from the UK tuning in. Lagos, Nigeria. How you doing there, Casey? There's a question here from ZamboTube asking, is the event registered to be seen later? Yes. We'll have a playlist and content for you to check out later. I want to make sure also that folks know, let me run through the PowerPoint slides real quick here. Not only do we have a great set of speakers, there's going to be a survey that we're going to have available for you. You don't need to fill out the survey yet because we haven't done anything yet. So, but there'll be some a raffle drawing for some gift cards at the end of the day for folks that complete the survey. We want you to try out GitHub Copilot Modernization. So we've got a QR code there along with an aka.ms link. Copilot-Modernization that'll get you started. And if you want to stay in touch and you want to see the latest things that are happening around modernization and .NET, join us on our LinkedIn group. Okay, we have a LinkedIn group for .NET developers, linkedin.com/groups/40949. You have to request to be added, and then you'll get a feed of all the different things that are going on in the .NET community. And importantly, things around modernization, we're going to share there as there's announcements, as there's updates, and we want to make sure that you're aware of those features that are coming, because we know folks that are working in this space might not always be paying attention to the latest stuff that's going on and being announced on the blog posts and social media. All right.
Yeah, and we know we have so many things to show, right? Wow.
So you know what? We should probably get right into modernizing .NET apps and invite our friend Mika Dumont, who's a program manager on the ASP.NET team, helping specifically with modernizing ASP.NET. So, Mika, the stage is yours.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mika Dumont, and today I'm going to show you how GitHub Copilot can help you modernize existing .NET applications and help reduce the manual effort that goes into modernization. Many organizations still rely on .NET Framework applications, and while they are critical to the business, they're also holding you back from taking advantage of what modern .NET has to offer. Modernizing to modern .NET can provide benefits such as improved performance, enhanced security, access to latest .NET capabilities and libraries, better support for cloud-native architecture and containers, easier maintenance, and a platform that's actively evolving and supported. The challenge is that modernization isn't just a framework upgrade. It often involves project system changes, dependency updates, and API replacements. For many teams, that's what makes modernization feel overwhelming. That's where GitHub Copilot Modernization comes in. GitHub Copilot Modernization is an agentic modernization experience that helps teams upgrade existing .NET applications. The agent can assess modernization opportunities, generate a modernization plan, execute changes, validate results, and help resolve issues along the way. So instead of walking through the slides, let's go ahead and see what this looks like on a real application. Here I have a .NET Framework 4.8 MVC application. And the very first thing that you're going to want to do is make sure you have the GitHub Copilot Modernization extension installed. So I already have that installed. I grabbed it from Marketplace. And then you want to make sure you select the Modernize .NET agent from the agent picker. And then you can also choose which model you want to use for this upgrade. And then you just tell the agent exactly what you want it to do. I'm going to be pretty explicit here with my prompt. Cool. Now the agent is thinking and it's kicking off the modernization workflow. I'm going to go ahead and allow this command to be run, and I don't want to have to do that each time, so I'm going to bypass approvals. Okay, so now these are some confirmations it needs from me. So for the target framework, .NET 10 looks good to me, so I'm going to keep that. I can either do an automatic or a guided mode. I'm going to keep it as automatic. Here's the branch that's going to check out into. I can rename it to whatever I want, but that looks good to me. My commit strategy, I'm going to keep as after each task. And all these options look good to me, so I'm going to go ahead and confirm that. And it already checked out into my new branch. And now it's running the assessment for me. So the agent analyzes the application, including its projects, dependencies, APIs, and modernization blockers to understand what needs to change. And it just generated this assessment artifact for me. It is a markdown file, and I can go ahead and preview that. And the assessment artifact provides a detailed inventory of the application and highlights potential modernization challenges. For example, we can see information about dependencies, APIs, modernization recommendations. So rather than starting modernization blindly, you begin with a clear understanding of what needs to be addressed. One thing that we always get asked is about skills. So if you want to create your own skills, you would just have to create the skills folder under this .github folder, and you can just drop in your own personal skills, whether those are organizational standards that you might have. You can create your own custom skills and just drop them into that skills folder. And the agent will respect that during execution. Now I have these other upgrade options that I need to confirm. So upgrade strategy all at once, that looks good to me. Project approach, I have a side-by-side. You know what? I'm actually going to change this to an in-place rewrite. And I'm going to go ahead and confirm the rest. Cool. And now it's persisting that setting update that I did. And now it's generating the plan and the tasks. And so the assessment tells us what needs to change, and the plan tells us how we're going to change it. Okay, so it generated this plan markdown file for me. And here you can just review, adjust priorities, add additional instructions. You can refine the plan before execution begins. And again, because these artifacts are markdown files, they can be reviewed, edited, and stored alongside the application source code. This all looks to me, looks good. So here you can see the API incompatibilities that it needs to update. And here's my tasks markdown artifact. So it's actually showing me now that it started the first task. It's executing that first task. These are my upgrade options. So remember before I had these options that I was able to select. So I went ahead and did the in-place rewrite instead of the side-by-side. So again, it's just showing me that change over here. I can go in and keep editing this as much as I want, or I can just collaborate with the agent through chat to have it edit this markdown file. Let's look at the plan again. Okay, so again, this tells me about the strategy, the overview, the different tasks that are going to be run. So it's going to verify things, and it's going to convert my project to SDK style. And here's my tasks markdown. One thing that we recently added to is this dashboard view. So not only are you in control and you can collaborate with the agent, you can also get full visibility into what's going on. So here is, you can see that we're now in the execution phase of the modernization process. Here's another view of the assessment as well. You can see all the different mandatory and optional changes. Here's my project view. And this is my compatibility breakdown. And here's my activity monitor, but this isn't going to be populated yet. So we have to wait for that first task to finish running. Okay, so that first task just completed. And now it's running, going to the next task. And let's actually take a look at the dashboard view now. So here is our activity monitor. So you can see the different commits. You can see the commit timeline. You can just click on those and actually see what has been modified exactly. This isn't super interesting. It's just showing like the task markdown that has been updated and the progress details markdown. Here's my logs as well. You can see here, we see the .cs proj file has been updated. You can also view all of this by file, what changes have happened in each file. So here we can view the modifications that happened in the CSproj file. Let's actually take a look at this. And then we have this by project view as well. And you can see this is getting populated as the agent is running too. So you can monitor all the changes that are happening. This is like your diagnostics dashboard. Okay, so it's still running that second, the SDK style conversion task. Okay, it just completed the second task. And it's now starting the third task, which is upgrading the application to .NET 10 with package and API remediation. And while that's running, let's just do like a recap of what we've seen so far. So we saw that the agent generated the assessment, the plan, and the tasks. They're all in Markdown. So you can go in, edit those, you can collaborate with the agent if you want to edit them. And it also generated this dashboard. So you can actually view and see all the different changes that are happening. So you have full visibility into everything and you have full control as well. Okay, so let's go see where we're at. So now you can see that we're on the fourth task. The third one has just passed. And this is the final validation. You can see all the changes that are happening too, and you can view them within the editor of VS Code. You can keep or undo any of these changes. Maybe go ahead and just keep those changes. All right, so the fourth task just finished running. So now the upgrade is complete. All 4 tasks have executed and completed successfully. Let's just wait a little bit for the agent to finish up here. All right, so we've successfully modernized this project to modern.NET. The business functionality remains intact, but the application is now positioned to take advantage of modern performance, security, cloud-native development patterns. You can see you have more opportunities you can discover. You can add Aspire if you want. Let's just go ahead and look at our CSproj file. Everything you've seen here today is available in Visual Studio, VS Code, GitHub Copilot CLI, Copilot Cloud Agent, and the Modernize CLI. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Modernize CLI, it was recently released and it's a portfolio scale modernization experience. So if you have a portfolio of many different types of applications and you want to just run an assessment across all the applications at once and also generate a plan and execute all of that, Modernize CLI is for you. It does batch assessments, planning, and execution. So definitely check that out. Here are some resources. So the very first link is to our documentation. It's our getting started docs, as well as best practices and the different skills that we ship with the agent. And we actually recently just released WebForms to Blazor support. So if you have a WebForms application, you should definitely try out the agent and let us know how it goes. And the second link is to our GitHub repo. So if you have any feature requests or feedback, feel free to file an issue. And the third link is to our VS Code extension, which I just demoed today. And yeah, thank you for watching.
It was quick, but really got right to the point of this, didn't she, Pablo?
Oh, 100%. And you can see how easy it is to modernize something with .NET and GitHub Copilot. Man, I will even say like a Gen Z thing. It is lit. It is incredibly amazing how it can actually deliver and quick, right? And that's the amazing thing. It is so quick. I remember, Jeff. I gotta tell. Here's the thing. I don't have the years of experience of Mr. Amazing Jeff Fritz, which is famous, but but I did some modernization before when I was doing internship, and man, that was hard. It was like 1 month, like big sprints for just like doing half of a project, and it's crazy to see what you do now in 30 minutes.
And like, I worked in a day when we had to do the Y2K fix, and going through and looking at old code from the 70s and 80s was painful. But that's a different story. There's a couple questions here in the chat room that I just want to touch on briefly. A couple of common topics here. Some folks asking about being able to run locally or being able to run using the agent with other services. We've got the bring your own key features in Copilot now. So there, you can wire this up and use this in Visual Studio Code. I believe it's coming to Visual Studio, or it's not quite there yet. And you can also do this at the command line. You can put in the URL to whatever endpoint it is you want to use for your language model, as well as your API key, and it will connect and use those as part of the process as well. So that'll help you if you want to. Maybe you don't want to use the models that Copilot is serving. That's fine. We want to make sure that you're enabled to get your application migrated, modernized onto Azure. So all of these tools will work with whichever LLM you want to use. We hope you use Copilot. We've got all kinds of security declarations and privacy information that are available on the GitHub website, so folks can learn and see a little bit more about how we're not going to use your information to train and make the models better, right? Your information is your information. So,
important.
I mentioned Y2K, and folks are talking about COBOL and
you'll be calling a dinosaur, Jeff. I'm so sorry.
Hey, I am wise beyond my years.
Yes, you are.
So, Mika showed us a bit there about getting started with ASP.NET. We've got this great tool that we've built that helps folks get their apps tested, built the right way, and deployed in Aspire, right?
Yep.
I really like building with Aspire, and I'm thrilled we were able to invite David Pine to join us and talk about getting Aspire into the mix here.
100%, folks. And man, enjoy those presentations. Those are gold. And we are here to answer any questions that you may have about Aspire. If you never went to Aspire, please take a look on Aspire Dev. It is incredible.
Yeah. So the event is recorded. There's going to be information coming later. You'll be able to check this YouTube channel, and you'll see the videos available in a playlist right after the stream is over. No, it doesn't do VB6. I'm sorry. There are limits to how far back we go. These tools support .NET.
It is framework 3.5, isn't it? As far as I read it.
I think it goes back to 3.5. And we have on the other side of the tooling ways that you can work with some of the vendors that we're partnered with to modernize mainframe applications as well. We talked about that during the build presentation. So yes, you can upgrade an older project from WebForms. That was one of the last things Mika was talking about there in the session. Those features are in there. Check out, and I have, let me bring up the correct PowerPoint slide for that. There we go. If we can go to that PowerPoint slide, check out the link to the modernization there. That'll jump you right into the documentation to help you get started. And there's information about in there about getting started with WebForms. So That's been such a hurdle for folks to try and migrate through, Pablo. I don't know if you've tried to do any of that.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, did not try with web forms though, so I only can hear your pain from here.
Yeah, not easy to go through, but we should talk about Aspire,
We
and
do.
let's bring on our friend David Pine to show us a little bit about modernizing with Aspire.
Go, David.
Hi, friends. I'm David Pine, and I'm with the Aspire team at Microsoft. And today I'm really excited to share with you Agentic App Modernization, but through the lens of Aspire specifically. We recently just shipped a new repository, Microsoft Aspire Skills. Let's get into it. So today, what we're going to be modernizing is the MVC Music Store app. Now, this was originally written by John Galloway and has been a passion project of his for a long time. You can see MVC 3, and then they upgraded to MVC 4, and then MVC 5. Now, you could still use MVC. One might argue that there's other more modern .NET approaches to use. So let's do that. We're going to start by deleting these two old directories. We don't want to confuse our AI by having legacy bits within our kind of starting point, so to speak. So we're going to delete those and then minimize that. So now we just have the MVC5. As a reminder, MVC5 and the latest version of the music store is targeting .NET Framework 4.8. So let's get on to .NET, the cross-platform alternative, better approach, in my opinion, much more performant. And let's use ASP.NET Core minimal APIs, and we'll use a different user experience as well. Let's just kind of modernize the app holistically and do so with Aspire. So this is our starting point. We just deleted 500 files. So now that all those files are deleted, we just need to make sure that we have the latest version of Aspire on our machine. So jump over to aspire.dev, your single source of truth for everything Aspire. This is our marketing site. This is our docs site for conceptual content. This is has our samples. It has release notes. It has an LLMS text that we hang off of it. It literally has everything that you could expect. API documentation as well. So from the site, simply click on the download icon and you'll get this pop-up modal for an install Aspire CLI. You copy this and you're off to the races. Back over in Visual Studio Code or your terminal of choice, you can just run that. This is going to install the latest version, the latest stable version of Aspire the CLI. And once it's there, we can run a command like Aspire version banner to showcase the banner and the full commit SHA for the Aspire 13.4 version of the CLI. Now that this tool is in place, all we have to do is initialize the app here for agentic workflows, and we'll do that by calling Aspire agent init. And this is going to initialize this workspace for AI. So we have our standard that's supported by VS Code, GitHub Copilot, Open Code. It also installs to the user profile. Yeah, standard's pretty much where we're going to live. So they have all these different available skills that we're going to install. So there's Aspire, deployment, init, monitoring, orchestration, Aspirify, and the Playwright CLI. You can pick and choose which ones you want. Simply hit enter to install them, and it's going to communicate that the Aspire agent skills were installed. So we've got Aspire, deployment, init, monitoring, orchestration, and the Aspirify. That's where they're located. Then if we just open this back up, as you can see, our agents skills are all where we'd expect them to be, with references and tote. So we're over inside the GitHub Copilot app, and this thing's amazing. This is such a huge improvement over the constant toil we were experiencing as developers when we kind of degraded down to the terminal and, you know, CLIs and doing that. Like, it was great for a while. A bit of nostalgia was definitely invoked. But now we have a proper GUI, and I love GUIs. I'm a big fan of them. So we are going to start a new session, and this session is going to be from a GitHub repository. So since I have that kind of agent initialized and MVC deleted version of the app that I pushed up, MVC Music Store, so it's under iEvangelist / MVC Music Store. So this is where we are going to start, and we're going to choose not main, we rewrite app modernization. That's the branch we're going to start from. So that branch is our starting point. So this is, again, initialized such that there's no contradicting old versions in there. It's the MVC 5 .NET Framework 4.8, and I'm going to call upon Aspirify. You can see just a /. This is how you access your skills. So I'm going to say Aspirify, and I do have a rather long kind of additional prompt that's been based on my domain knowledge of this application. I know where it is today, and I know where I want to take it, which is very important. You can't just say forward. What does that mean? Lots of developers have an opinion, and I believe that's really, really important. So we're going to say Aspirify, and I'm going to paste in this massive prompt. All right, there it is. And then I'm going to select the model. I'm going to choose Opus 4.8, and then we'll do it interactive. No, we'll do a plan. So this is going to start cooking. So again, to kind of set the stage here, this is GitHub Copilot app. We just pulled the repository, targeted the branch that we pushed up that had the cleaned up from the legacy bits. So now we're just starting from MVC 5, .NET Framework 4.8, and we have the Aspirify skill. That's very important. That Aspirify skill, Maddie has spent a lot of time on it, and it's amazing. What it does is it takes an app, an old app, a legacy app, if you will, maybe a slightly more tenured app. It takes that app and it makes it such that it brings it forward with Aspire, and that's modern in it of itself. On the Aspire team, we're living on the bleeding edge. We're doing amazing things, and I'm so excited to be sharing this with you. But in addition to that skill to Aspirify the app, I had that prompt that I pasted in, and that prompt had several hundred lines of kind of rigorous preferences for how I wanted things done. So we have a prompt here. It's asking us, the modern projects don't exist yet, only the legacy. Yep, that's correct. So full modernization per the attached spec. Scaffold all modern projects, then wire the app host. Yes, perfect. That is exactly what we want. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to kind of iterate here on this plan a bit. And then once the plan is good, I'm going to flip it over to autopilot. So this is really cool. As you get to visualize its thinking, the entire thought process is here. And this is fully auditable too. You can actually go look at the logs. You can see where everything, like what things were taken into account, what files were analyzed, what things were read, what were parsed, what its understanding of the system is. So I like to think of AI as just another tool, and I think you should too. I like to think of agents and sub-agents as a team of junior developers. And it's a really great way to kind of ground yourself in that this isn't magical. This isn't some mystical art. The advantage is tenfold. And I'm not going to say like we're 10x developers, but I will say that we are far more productive as individuals and thus as team members because of the ability of spitting out code so quickly, being able to reason over this huge amounts of data. So imagine how long it would take an actual junior developer if they were tasked with the same thing, the same set of instructions. How long would it take them to do the same thing? I'd argue probably a lot longer. So This is really exciting too. So this is actually already working with the, as part of its plan, it's already using some of the Aspire skills. And this is exactly what's happening here. You can see that whenever you see an Aspire call, this is searching the document. So it's querying for the 13.4. It's getting individual documents based on the returned results from the list. So it's getting stuff for Keycloak. It's getting how to add Aspire to an existing app. It's doing more and more searches for all of those things. And then we'll eventually see other Aspire calls that reach out and ask for API docs and things of that nature. So the Aspire CLI is extremely compelling from that standpoint. And I'm super proud of this feature where all of Aspire.dev is literally tokenized into LLMS text, which is a special format that's been standardized, and it helps large language models reason about your website. And what we've done with the Aspire CLI is we've actually codified that such that we can query that LLMS text and then provide that context back to AIs. So in other words, the AI is leveraging the live documentation on your behalf. So these skills, and there's many other things that are spun off of the Aspire CLI. That's really the focal point of this effort, is using the power of the CLI. So let's continue to let this cook, and I'll jump back on as something interesting pops up. A few moments later. So here's the plan summary. The plan is to, let's look at it in full view. Let's minimize this. All right, so the full plan is to Aspirify the MVC Music Store, modern dotnet, and Aspire app. The problem in the approach, the target architecture, all of the different breakouts. So we're going to have the service defaults, the data for the EF core database context. So this is so that we're going to kind of have that encapsulated on its own. We're going to have a migration service, which is going to be a worker. And actually, this was a very common pattern that was not really present in a consistent way or a meaningful way. But Aspire has kind of helped surface this with EF Core, such that it's now an official pattern that we're recommending, is having a worker that separates the migration. So no more, kind of EF Core pages loading where it's like, oh, you didn't migrate. Now you have to restart the whole app and then do some command line thing. This is all just managed for you. Our minimal API with route groups and DTOs, perfect. Astro, TypeScript, Tailwind, Shad, CN, UI, Astro. This is going to be great. Phased to-dos. So I like this because, as you can see, the AI has come up with a formal plan for how it's going to approach this. It's got the cart, the checkout, the auth, orders, admin, polish, key decisions. This is risks, everything. This is great. So scaffolding, building the full EF thing, implementing the minimal API, building the Astro catalog, implementing the carts, implementing, ordering, validating. All right, I'm pretty convinced. This seems like a great plan. So we're going to approve and implement with autopilot, and this will actually get out of the plan mode and enter autopilot mode. And this is where we're just going to let it spin. So I'm jumping back in here quick to just share that this is really incredible. After 44 minutes, we have a working front end. So this is the rewrite with Astro, and it pulled it up in this canvas, which is just another little kind of window on the side. And it looks like we have all of our different genres and categories in the featured albums. So let's keep letting it cook and see how much further along it goes. But it seems to have a lot of things in place. It looks like it's wiring the cart and the checkout APIs right now. Few more moments later, it did honestly take about an hour and 15 minutes for this run, but that's really important because it was an autopilot. So it was running playwright CLI. It was implementing tests to verify behavior, login flows, spinning up containers, exercising the API. It did a whole bunch of things that we would have had to have done ourselves manually otherwise. So let's take a look at where we are now that the app is in a better place. So let's jump back into the app now. We're over in VS Code. A big thanks to the GitHub Copilot app. It was doing a bunch of the heavy lifting. So this is the README and the app host, but let's take a look real quick at the Git history. So we can see when we first started this whole thing, if you recall, I removed the obsolete files like the MVC 3 and 4 to kind of have like our initial starting ground. And then we had our Aspire agent init where we added our skills, and then the agent started to cook. We let it take off and start doing a bunch of things. So this is where we see the co-authored by Copilot. So all of this commit history here is our ledger from the autopilot engaging into executing on the plan. So this implemented file-based Aspire app hosts that built out the catalog for the minimal API. It added Astro SSR storefronts. It built out the cart and checkout functionality. It added Keycloak OIDC auth. It added admin product CRUD. It did some updates to the README. And then I will admit, I wasn't totally satisfied with where it landed on the UX. I'm a bit of a stickler for that. That's actually, it's actually a good thing. Don't accept the defaults, right? Work with the agent and kind of iterate on it. So this is a few things here where I kind of tweaked a few things that I wanted to make sure were kind of well represented. So if you remember, this is the state of our file system. We've got the agents folder with all of our skills. We have our realms. Now realms are specific to Keycloak, and that's where some of our authentication bits are residing. And then inside the source directory, we now have an API, a data folder, a migration service, the service defaults, the web front end, and then of course the initial starting place, which was MVC5. So let's look at the README. The README is a great place to kind of familiarize yourself with what an app is representing. So this is the end goal. We have an architecture, we have our browser, and go Astro SSR or server-side rendering. So that's the back end for front end. And then the Aspire app host. So there's OIDC auth code to Keycloak that validates a JWT, and that's provided back to our minimal API. So this is how we can actually access our APIs. And then we have EF core that then feeds into relying on SQL, and then our music database for SQL Server. And then it also has the migrations and seeding that then exit. That's the overall architecture, and that's great. So these are all kind of conceptually individual pieces or resources rather of your application. So we can see here a resource is a SQL music database, the Keycloak OIDC endpoints with Realm re-imported from Realms on every run, migrations, this is a worker, and our API, which is ASP.NET Core minimal APIs, backed with our JWTs from Keycloak, and then the web Astro server-side rendering with Vite. So we have that project layout. We have all these different API services. You can run it with Aspire Run or Aspire Start. And then this is really cool. This is for demo users only, development local. We have two customers that are kind of seeded into this. So we've got a customer with a password of password and an admin with a password of password. And this is simply for demonstration purposes. This is not something you would do in production. Again, this is just for local development only. So we can remember those credentials when we'll log in here in a second and look at the app. So going to production, it's got details on how to do that. It demonstrates the authentication model, how there's an anonymous, an authenticated, and an administrator, different types of kind of sub roles. Talks about what was all migrated, and again, referring back to the legacy app itself. So let's take a look now at the app host. And this is really the nucleus, or like the center of how you express relationships between these resources. So this is a file-based C# app. So we're pointing to the Aspire App Host SDK, and we have a few packages that we pull in. So we've got a hosting package for SQL Server, for Keycloak, and for JavaScript. And we start with our builder, and the builder adds a SQL Server with a data volume. So this is great for local development. And from there, we pull out a music database. And then for Keycloak, we add Keycloak with a Realm import. And then we've got a migrations project. The migrations project takes a reference to the music database. And this is actually really one of the big selling points of Aspire, because when you're adding and modeling these resources, you can define dependencies between them by simply saying with reference. So when I say that our migrations project takes a reference to the music database, Aspire at runtime, and as part of its deployment story as well, will perform a configuration injection step that basically maps environment variables that are understood by the consuming project for migrations to assume access to the music database. And that's really, really compelling. We also say wait for. So this will actually wait for the migrations to be done before that resource starts. So you can have dependencies that are expressed in that way. Additionally, moving on, we have a project here that is the music store API. And we've got a health endpoint for health checks. We have an environment variable for the realm and the authority. We've got wait for completions of migrations before it starts. And then we have an endpoint. So this is actually really neat. So this is mapping out, apparently, as part of the rewrite, AI decided that the minimal API should also include a scalar API, which is awesome because this demonstrates a full end-to-end. Having Open API is a modern approach to building out REST APIs, especially on ASP.NET Core land. And Scalar API adds a beautiful user experience atop that. And then here we have our Vite app, which is the web front store. And then we pass to it the client ID and secret and the issuer. And this is how we get our auth flow. So if we drop down into the terminal and we say Aspire run, this will actually build the app host and launch the dashboard. And let's go take a look at the app and start playing with it a bit and yeah, see how well it all came together. So the dashboard is up. So I'm just going to copy this URL for the dashboard. It includes the login token. The reason I'm going to copy it is because I don't want our Visual Studio Code instance to actually open that within Visual Studio Code. I want to open it in a browser of choice here, which is Zen. So you can see immediately Keycloak is running, but unhealthy. So it does take a second for this to spin up. This is a container. You can see these other states for different things. This is actually a great depiction of how Aspire kind of wires things and dependencies together, those wait for expressions. So this is actually waiting on something else to be ready. And you can see now all these things are ready. So we have our Keycloak. Let's actually look at it in this view. So we have our SQL server that then has a music database with no endpoint. The music database is consumed by the API and the migration service. The migrations is part of, are also waited for by the API. So we wait for the completion there. And then the API consumes the Keycloak, as does the web front end. And the web front end also has a web installer. So this is actually just a kind of like transient step for invoking npm or pm install. So to make sure that's done. So that's already done. The migrations are already done. So it looks like our apps are all up and running. So let's jump into, all right, so I see the web here and the API. So the API, as I mentioned, has a scalar open API definition. And this is the beautiful UX that I was talking about. So there's categories, there's products, there's a cart, there's an admin, there's a me. There's a beautiful user experience here that you could use to easily test and examine the API itself. So let's jump into the web. This is the web experience. So this is super exciting. This is a beautiful, in my opinion, and slightly biased opinion, a beautiful rewrite of the original, whilst still keeping the integrity of the intent behind the MVC5 version. But as a reminder, this is using .NET 10 and Aspire. So we can navigate all of these different featured albums. We can quickly add some stuff. So let's add tool. Let's see what else they've got here that we might be interested in. There's different genres. So let's see. Blues. Maybe we want, well, Iron Maiden. That might be curious. Eric Clapton. Sure, let's add that. Let's look at some country, electronic. Let's just add a few things and some metal. Yeah, tool. All right, and let's go to our cart. And you can see all the different things that we've added, and then we could check out. Well, see, I'm anonymous. I haven't even signed in yet. So let's check out. Now, if you remember, this is actually leveraging our auth flow that we had injected with the OIDC. This is KeyCloak. So we're going to type in our password, which is no secret here, password, because again, this is all local, just dev experience. This is not how you would do things in production, but this is a great way to kind of demonstrate those. So let's fake name, fake email, .org, all the people whatever, fake, state Washington, 5, country, US, and let's just say place order. All right, so we have placed our order for all of our items. We can look here, we're signed in, we have our old orders. We can actually toggle the theme. We can go back and browse other genres and so on and so forth. So I'm actually pretty impressed with this site. It looks to be working very well. We could log in as an admin and kind of examine that. But instead, what I think I'll do is I want to show you how amazing the user experience is for Aspire, the dashboard itself. So now that we've done some clicking around, we can actually look at the console and see all of the various logs. This is for everything, but we could dial down to individual resources. So this is the API, all of the logs for that. You can look at KeyCloak, what it's been doing. The migrations, we can see that those were applied immediately and moved on. The web itself, the installer, this is the npm install. So let's look at structured logs. If there's anything in here that we're curious about, or traces. So let's see, we went to the cart. So let's look at traces. We added, actually, we didn't add anything. We told the AI skills that we wanted to have Aspire help us out. So Aspire actually has baked in recommendations for how to implement OTel and open telemetry for all of these various endpoints. So you can see the full stack. You can observe traces and spans and metrics, and it's a very compelling observability first and forward-thinking way to approach modern application development. So by leveraging Aspire and the skills that come with it, we were able to do a full sweep by installing the agent skills and then asking it to Aspirify our app and then providing a bit of prompt and then a bit of post kind of UX tweaks. Those weren't even necessary. It was just kind of my nuances, but that's it. So I'm super excited by this. I hope that you enjoyed everything that you saw here, and I hope that you will check out the resources to learn more. Thank you so much.
Oh, man. I really like what Aspire brings to the game. And there's so much there that David didn't get to on. Now that you're in Aspire, it's really easy to deploy to Azure. Like there's more that we could have landed on there, and just showing here's how now you can get all these great practices built into your application and be polyglot. He brought in a little bit of Node.js to build and manage that application. Keycloak to help with the authentication. I really like seeing just how easy it is to embrace and use that tool across everything as you start modernizing and wanting to get your application more maintainable.
Yeah, I'll say one thing about Aspire. You know what convinced me, Jeff, that Aspire is incredible?
Yeah, what?
I believe it was the quickest I ever saw a Redis installation and procedure to go. It is so smooth. If you try to install Redis by your own, it is not that fun. But with Aspire, just lines of code, like you add some lines to add to Redis to. It's beautiful. I love you, Aspire. I love the team at Aspire. Thank you.
David had started up and hooked up a SQL Server instance there, right?
Yeah.
Like these aren't trivial things. It's running in a container, but you get just a couple of lines of code, fluent configuration to get that up and running. It's really good stuff.
Yeah, 100%. And the thing about Aspire now is that some people miss. Of course, we are in .NET Day. Of course, we are .NET Day, but you need to remember now Aspire can run on how many languages and frameworks now? It's crazy.
Right. JavaScript, Python, .NET, Java. There's plugins for Rust and Go, and yeah. And TypeScript now. You can write your configuration in TypeScript if you like, instead of C#. So there's great stuff there, and I really look at it as a great transport to get you, once you're upgraded, get you into being able to deploy wherever you want to go. And I see some folks in chat asking about Terraform and wanting to use Terraform to deploy. We don't have Terraform in the mix just yet. We use Bicep, but there's no reason that Terraform can't be in the mix, and I believe it's in the plans at some point in the future. You can check on the GitHub issues. Link to that through aspire.dev.
Can I put the links on the screen? Do we have like a?
I don't have a link for aspire.dev, but we should touch on some of our other calls to action before our next session here. So let's go over to those slides. There we go. So we want you to try out GitHub Copilot Modernization. There is a lot that you can do with this. There's ways that you can dial in and Aspirify. Check it out, aka MS Copilot-Modernization. We have a survey for you all about the event. Tell us what you think. And by filling out the survey, you could be entered into, you will be entered into a drawing to win one of 25 $25 gift cards. Check it out, aka.ms/.netday/survey. And we got a QR code there to make it easier to get to that deal. And last, we want to make sure that you stay in the loop on the things that are happening around .NET as we make announcements. We know folks aren't necessarily paying attention to the blogs or social media. Another place that you can pay attention to that we're trying to make sure folks get hooked up to is our LinkedIn .NET developer group. Go to linkedin.com/groups/40949, or you can take a picture of that QR code and get connected.
Connect right now. I need to connect. I'm not in the group.
Yeah. There's literally thousands of people there, and we post messages so that folks can see the cool new things that are going on without having to go get involved in all the different social medias or follow all the different blogs. We try and give folks a curated feed of things coming from us on the LinkedIn group. All right. So that's all for the slides. Let's talk about, there was a comment earlier about Windows Forms. Somebody was asking about Windows Forms in the live chat. And fortunately, we've got our friends who work on WinForms. We've got Merrie and Klaus joining us to talk a little bit about upgrading to WinForms and some of the cool things you can do in WinForms now in .NET 10. So, Merrie and Klaus. The stage is yours.
Hi, I'm Merrie McGaw. I'm the engineering manager for the Windows Forms team. Click once, Visual Studio Tools for Office, you name it. If it's enterprise, I probably work with it. And I've been doing this for Microsoft for about 20 years now, which means I've seen a lot of line of business apps around and that people are using. WinForms, of course, is super popular, has always been the go-to for utilities that people might need to create and that now they might need to modernize. So what I wanted to do today was show you the GitHub Copilot modernization tool and see why we might want to do some of the modernizing of a WinForms application. So I've got Visual Studio here kind of queued up with my favorite application ever, or my favorite database ever. Those of you that have been working with WinForms are probably quite familiar with our lovely Northwind database. And the Northwind database here, you can tell this is definitely an old .NET Framework 2.0 application. We've got our customers and we've got our orders below. A navigation bar looks really clunky, doesn't handle things like dark mode or high DPI very well. And these are some of the reasons that people want to be migrating from .NET Framework to .NET Core. So let's take a look at what we can do here. First of all, I'm just going to show you, we have that as a .NET Framework 2.0 application. So this is really old school. We're talking using ADO.NET, .NET Framework 2.0, C#. I could have done it in VB. It might have been done in VB.NET by some folks. This one happens to be C#. And I'm going to pull in GitHub Copilot and see if it can give me some help getting it all the way to today's modern .NET 10 applications. So I'm just going to give a GitHub Copilot chat here a little click. And what I want to use is a tool here that they've added called Modernize. And this Modernize agent does a lot of stuff for us so that we don't have to. A lot of the steps that are usually things that make it harder to do your modernization or your migration. So I'm going to say, I need to update this to .NET 10 help. And see what it comes up with. The Modernize agent comes in, kicks in, and starts analyzing the project, analyzing the things that are different between .NET Framework projects and .NET Core projects, and starts creating a solution for us. So as we watch it think, we've got some decisions that we're going to eventually need to make. First, it's going to give us a branch and create an upgrade workflow. And it's going to tell me what sort of flow do I want to use. I'm going to scroll back up here for just a moment. Do I want it to do as automatic as possible and then only pause when blocked? Do I want it guided? What version of .NET do I want to upgrade to? I'm going to go with the LTS at .NET 10. Let's see, modernization WinForms demo looks good. Working branch, I'm going to say change the branch. I don't like that name. I'm going to say, let's call it Merrie Demo Modernizer. And if I spell it wrong, it will actually catch that too, do that too. All right. So we're changing the branch name, and then I will have it start the process. Start. And let's see what it does. Gives me my branch, starts initializing a workflow. And as we watch behind the scenes over here, we will start to see different files pop up with information about what's going on and the strategies that the Copilot's going to try to take for us. So let's let this run for a moment. First thing it's doing is it's checking out which projects I have in my solution, which in this case, I have two projects. I have a user control project, and I have the main solution, the main form project. It's looking at the dependencies, the API challenges that we might run into, and general migration challenges, and making an assessment, deciding specifically what is it that my project and my solution need in order to modernize. And here you can see it's looking at different approaches. And in a moment, what we're going to see is a list of a plan that we can then approve and decide what it is we want to accomplish. And of course, it takes GitHub just a little bit sometimes. We've got 12 tasks done now, and it's giving me the options that I need to look at. So move this out of the way for a moment. And I don't think I need this quite so big. Let me open up the preview here, and it gives me my customer tracker options. First up is the upgrade strategy, going from a bottom-up approach. That seems right to me. The project approach, it's seeing the solution contains .NET Framework WinForms projects, and we have two options. We could go in place, or we could do multi-targeting. I think for this demo, it's much easier just to do in place. So I selected, want to keep up with that. For unsupported API handling, it wants to defer really complicated changes and create follow-up tasks. That seems quite reasonable. And of course, this is WinForms, so I use system drawing. I do need the Windows compatibility pack. And then we're not going to worry about nullable reference types just now. So this plan, it looks like it's exactly what I need it to do. So I'm going to say confirm. And now it's going to start doing the steps that it plans, the different tasks that are associated with doing the upgrade. And you'll be able to see even more markdown files get generated and flow in the background as we watch this go along. So it's got its instructions from me. Now it's going to make the plan. And you can see as it's reading the plan, it knows that I wanted to go bottom up. It knows that I wanted the Windows compatibility pack, and looking through some basic instructions. I like watching some of the thinking that goes through, because I can see, for example, that it wanted to create a plan around what tasks need to be done. So it's starting the task file creation. And there's some other times where you can look at what it's thinking and make sure that it's thinking the same way that you might want to be thinking about the process. All right. Usually a project like this might take me a couple of days, depending on how complicated the project is. Might take a day or two to get completely modernized, because there's some big steps that we have to do. We have to change it from legacy CS project styles into the new SDK style projects. We need to make sure that we get all the dependencies identified and migrated. We've got to make sure that we actually do the modernization, the migration effort. In fact, here's the list of the to-dos that we've got to do, that GitHub Copilot modernization agent's going to do for us. Double checking that tool chain, making sure that we've got .NET 10, and then the conversion, then app by app, what it's going to change, or I should say project by project, what it's going to upgrade, and then a full validation. And so it starts first here with the verified toolchain task, making sure that I've got the right stuff installed so that I can actually build for .NET 10. And to make things as easy as possible, I'm just going to go with always allow in this scenario. And there will be a few questions and a few tool things that I have to do along the way, but it's so much less effort and time than any other migration sort of scenario that I've done myself. So now it's finding MS build, it's restoring the customer tracker solution. Continuing along with the toolchain verification. And lo and behold, task number 1 is done, verifying of the toolchain. And next up, we have to convert to SDK style. And sometimes there's some extra in the markdown files here, but as you can see, it's moving on to the next part of the plan, which is step 2, making sure that we've got the converting to the SDK style projects. And you can see we're starting that project. And again, it's going to do a few steps for me. Looks at a skill that really talks about what are the main things you need to do to convert to SDK style. And as it goes along, we're going to start to see some progress. Planning in automatic mode. The first task is done and committed. Now it's converting to SDK style in the appropriate dependency order. So we start with the navigation control. And looks like there was a build issue. Let's see what it does with it. And now it is figuring out what the issue was. Executing. And it looks like we're good to go. Now we're going to do the next project, which is the customer tracker form. And it looks like this error is expected because it just continues right along. Let's see what it does in the end here. Oh, every once in a while you get a tool call limit, and I just need to tell it at this point to continue. Which is the navigation control upgrade. Lots of internal tools that this is calling. Every once in a while we hit our limits. All I have to do is tell it to continue along, and it goes to the next stage in the process. So here's checking on where we were in the SDK style conversion. And it looks like we're making good progress there. It's building it. Now it's going to make sure that I can do a full SDK build. And it looks like we are pretty much at the end of the project style conversion. And we'll need to move on to the next step. There we go. Completed the SDK style conversion. Now it's moving along to the navigation control. And yes, I want to continue working with these skills. This time it's going to be the actual upgrading of the controls. So we're starting with the navigation control. That was the user control that did the next, add, save, and delete delete customer information. So it's building that out from .NET Framework 2.0, moving it to .NET 10. Takes a little bit of work here. Now it's changed, pulled in the Microsoft Windows compatibility pack, which is required for this. And it looks like we've got some good progress here. Building it. Build succeeded with some warnings. That looks like we are ready to move on to the next thing. The interesting thing about using Copilot to do these modernization projects is that you can follow along in its logic, and it's not always exactly the same information that's displayed or exactly the same set of steps that occurs each time because of the nature of large language models. But with GPT-5.5, I found that I've been able to do pretty much whatever I want in a really reasonable amount of time. It looks like it is just now wrapping up that last one. There's a dependency problem at the moment because the navigation control is .NET 10, but it's being referenced by the customer tracker app, which is still .NET Framework 2.0. So I don't think we need to worry about that. It's going to continue moving on, and in a few moments we'll see it switch over to the customer tracker application. Now here's that error that I was probably expecting, because you can't build the solution when one is 2.0 and one is 10 and they reference each other. Let's see what it decides to do about that. No, it decided to do a little bit of multi-targeting for the moment. Transitional multi-targeting, it said. Now can we do a full build? Looks much better. I'm not going to reload projects right now because that would interrupt this GitHub Copilot chat. So I'm just going to close up that little error message. And it looks like everything is building happily now. Double checking that the DLLs get created. And now every time I see it move to progress details, that's usually a sign that it's completing a task and ready to move on to the next one. So now that we got the navigation control completed, with, by the way, typing zero coding on my part at this point. Now it's got to do a little continue here. Oftentimes I see it wants me to continue after each individual step. And here we are. It asks, do I want to do this? Absolutely. Let's see what it does with the customer tracker form. Notice that it's moving to Microsoft.Data.SqlClient because the old ADO.NET stuff doesn't work the same way anymore. And it also updated the configuration manager and brought that Windows compatibility pack in. All done for us automatically. And boom. We got our build. Making sure we've got the right version of SQL data. And you can watch what's going on in the Copilot terminal down here too. Oh, that build looked good. Now a full solution build with .NET 10 upgrade. I think I've typed continue and start so far. And last validation needs to be done. So I'm going to say continue with it. That's that last final step. Let's see how it decides it wants to validate that it's gotten our full upgrade here. Double checking that we've fully upgraded everything the way that we should have. We don't have any test projects in this one. I was keeping it simple for it, though it was looking for them. Now, what do we think the chances are that we were able to get this to run and show data on the very first try with, like I said, zero effort on my part, besides making sure that the tools were doing what I wanted them to do? All right, it says that the task number 4 is done and the final validation. Boom. And one final continue here. And this will tell us how well we did. And a clean, full build from .NET 10. That part succeeded, it looks like, perfectly. And I'm going to allow this. Checking for vulnerabilities. Do I have any references to vulnerable packages out there? Which I don't. What else does it need to do? In WinForms, as far as I'm concerned, nothing is done until we've launched the application and that we can see that it's able to load data and move through the data in the database. Let's see if it helps us here. Yeah, looks like I'm going to want to launch and see what we got. Takes a second to build, and lo and behold, we've got our same application, same data, able to go in .NET in just a matter to .NET 10 in just a matter of minutes. One of the important things would be in WinForms, like, didn't look any different. It didn't look any, let's say, better than it used to. I can see it and view it in the form designer like I always used to. And note that, go to load your project properties, and it is now a .NET 10 application. So we got the migration completed properly, but that's just kind of moving versions. You get the performance, you get the security, you get the accessibility, you get all of the things that have happened automatically over the last several releases of .NET 10. But what's really important are some of the things that make WinForms, apps look maybe just a little bit better or a little bit more current to today's standards. You may have read Klaus Lofelmann's blog, The Dongle Died at Midnight. If you haven't, it's a great read about how he and his mother were able to use the WinForms expert agent in order to help build an application for her to solve a problem overnight or over the course of a weekend. Lots of great AI learnings in that one. And he's taken what he got there, and he's actually done a kind of a cool job for me. He's bundled them up into some skills, and I'm going to just load those up real quick. So here's the demos and skills. I'm just going to copy that folder, copy that, and I am going to put it in my folder. That is it. These skills are what I would consider the WinForms Expert Agent V2 kind of modernization skills, and we will be including them into Visual Studio in the very near future. I just wanted to make sure that you could see these before as part of this demonstration. So this, I'm not going to go with Modernize. I'm going to go just to a regular agent. And also for this to work, I'm going to have to make sure under Tools to Options, and let me just put my GitHub Copilot guy out of the way for a minute. Under GitHub Copilot, I want to make sure that I have enabled the ability for agents to load SQL files. So that's perfect. That's all I need for this particular demonstration. What are some things that we've done that I may want to do in .NET 10 that I couldn't do before? Well, probably the biggest one is I want this app to run in dark mode. WinForms added dark mode as a pre-release feature in .NET 9 and a full-fledged GA feature in .NET 10. It was one of the most highly sought after and asked for features that we've ever seen. And the response to it was tremendous. It does take a little bit of work to get it done, but because we've got these skills, the WinForms Expert Agent skills lined up, it reads it, it can make the changes for .NET 10, and let's see what we get. Making the changes to both of them. And it says it's building the solution. Unfortunately, it does not display that it is in dark mode in the designer. So the only way for me to see what happens is to go ahead and give it a build. And lo and behold, we've got something that resembles dark mode. Not exactly perfect, but not too bad for a one-liner. Let's go ahead and say that data grid doesn't look good. And I need to improve the layout and support high DPI. Let's see what it does with that. So sometimes going in and changing the data grid view and tweaking the layout in a WinForms application. I mean, that's the coolest part about WinForms in the past, was that you had the ability to do that in a designer. But now with Copilot, you're actually able to kind of describe some of those changes that you want. And in bigger applications that have lots of layout, that can be really, really helpful, because it's really easy to make small mistakes, small tweaks that are hard to figure out. It looks like it's going to go with a table layout panel, which I prefer. Data grid view with improved styling. That sounds pretty good. Per monitor v2 awareness at startup. That sounds about right. Let's see. And it's cool that we can make these visual changes in such a short amount of time, but that to me is only part of the puzzle. Modernizing your application means more than making it look good. It needs to perform better. It needs to have the modern techniques for accessing data, for testing your application, for separating your data layer from your UI layer. So once we've got this done, I'm going to see what we can do to make it a more modern functioning application, not just a modern looking application. Let's let it think here for a minute. Now, before I go too far with this, one of the things that makes that WinForms expert agent so useful is that it doesn't make changes generally that are going to break the designer. And so you can see I do have a table layout panel now that I didn't have before, but I can still see it in the designer, which is a big deal. Let's see how it looks. Ooh, that is much better. I'm much happier with this. All right. Now, let's go try to make it a more professionally structured, modern structure to an application. I've been hearing about this thing called MVVM for a few years. Should I use MVVM in this solution? And it's going to go look again at that user, that custom WinForms expert agent that now knows how to make conversions from this old ADO.NET style application. It says it's now on .NET 10, so it can use the new WinForms MVVM APIs like data context and command. So I'd say let's do it. And once we tell it to go, takes a moment, loads up those skills, updates, creates a view model. Let's see, what all does it talk about here? Adds class libraries. And it'll think for a little while as it creates an updated solution here. Oh, here we go. Telling me some of the tools. Oh, I need to let it do this. Use modern command binding that we implemented in .NET. I think it was 8 or 9. I'm losing track of all of the places where we've added improvements over the years. There we go. It's going to add some view models to the project. Solution Explorer won't be able to see it right away, but this is happening behind the scenes for us. There's our iCustomer data service. Now it's going to go pull the view models instead of just direct data binding the way that we had been doing it in .NET 10. No differences to the form itself, though. Let's let this add it to the solution. I'm not going to make this reload in Visual Studio right now. I'm just going to ignore it because Copilot Chat has me taken care of. And you can see that it's building in the background. Looks like it built just fine. Let me rebuild one more time with a clean this time, it looks like. No warnings, no problems. Let's see if it still connects to data. And no changes there. Awesome. One last thing. Shouldn't we be doing unit tests? And obviously, it's going to be able to add a unit test project for us and create the appropriate unit tests. So now we have separation between our data layer and our view layer, and we get all of we get the ability to write the unit tests. We get the ability to test our information. We've got it looking perfect in dark mode and a better, more responsive and accessible layout. Between the modernization tool agent in GitHub and migrating a customer tracker app from .NET Framework to .NET 10 and the WinForms Expert Agent V2 set of skills that I brought in, we were able to do this in under an hour, something that definitely would have taken us more time, days, hours and hours, if not days. And that, let me just see if it runs the tests, and boom. The test passed, nothing failed, and our application is golden. Thank you very much, and I hope that you get to enjoy upgrading your applications using Upgrade Assistant or the modernization agent and WinForms moving up to .NET 10 in your organizations. Thanks.
Oh, man. Windows Forms. There's just something that's warm and fuzzy about using Windows Forms.
I don't know what you're talking about. This was written before I even knew how to read, Jeff.
Hey,
What?
The tools, the technologies, it's so good. It's been around for so many years, and really, it's a foundational thing that is still one of the most popular project types that folks build with using .NET. So getting that migrated forward, getting that support, seeing that folks can grow their applications and continue to maintain them, it's so important. And I know there's a lot of folks out there that are looking to do that.
Yeah.
And right, the big thing she was showing there, getting theming in there. Okay, that's simple. That's easy to see. But the one thing that I don't think she touched on enough is the high DPI display support. Like, that was a real challenge for us a couple of years ago as folks started getting 4K displays installed and running locally, and WinForms just looking terrible at it. But now with 4K display support, high DPI support, yeah, you want to get into the modern WinForms running on .NET 10. And I love how quickly Merrie showed us how quickly and easy it is to get there. So it's a good thing. And 100%. I like it.
Yeah.
And I see a number of folks asking questions about cost and the number of tokens being used. That's like asking a consultant who hasn't seen your application how much it's going to cost to update or add a feature to your application. That's why we have planning and assessment steps.
Yep. And here's the thing about like the tokens, right? I think that I think it's a very fair concern, but you can have, here's the thing. You can do a lot of those things by yourself as well, right? So like if you want to do like the planning, you can do the planning by yourself and read it and try to do that. Or imagine that you want this to be a middle ground, right? Imagine, I want to know what my application needs to be modernized and see, well, what can I, give to my developers and what I can give to the program. That is the things. You can do multiple things. It's not just like one option. It's not just like one AI stop shop, right? You can do multiple things there.
I like what you're suggesting there, the hybrid approach as well. Hey, there's a couple pieces here that I want to take care of, and these tedious bits over here, you go migrate those things for me.
100%.
So, but most of these applications need some sort of a database or data storage coming with them. And I think that leads nicely into our next session that we need to talk about with Jerry Nixon. Yeah, that's right. Just checking my schedule here. I've got that right. Yeah. Well, we're going to talk to Jerry next about migrating databases to Azure and taking advantage of upgrading, modernizing, and getting out of running locally on some of these things. So let's go over to Jerry and take a listen.
Yeah.
Hi, and welcome to Cloud Native Data Without Starting Over. We're modernizing your database layer the easy way. Hey, I'm Jerry Nixon, Principal Product Manager in Azure Data and AI. I work on the SQL Server team, specifically around developer experiences, trying to figure out how we can continue to reduce the friction for adoption, but also just make your everyday life a little bit easier. In this session, we'll be talking about some of the key low-hanging fruit to help modernize your database and modernize your application without introducing a whole bunch of change. Specifically, though, we'll be talking about the database driver and some of the things that you need to consider when you're optimizing your application to interact with the database. We'll talk about semantic search, being able to upgrade the way you find data inside of your database. Also, we'll be talking about database projects, how you maintain your schema over time, and we'll have a quick discussion about code first versus database first. We'll also talk about your API layer and the benefits of having a multi-source API as you start thinking about migrations and modernization to become cloud native. And then finally, we'll talk about SQL MCP Server, your ability to take your existing database and safely expose it to agents so that you can start introducing new AI capabilities in your enterprise. Today, we're talking about Microsoft SQL. This is the developer's database, and the reason is because of all the features that are built specifically to make the developer more productive, but also to make them more powerful and give them more answers to hard questions that their company comes to them to answer. Today, though, we'll specifically be talking about the new vector data type. This is a capability inside SQL Server 2025. We'll talk about how we can automatically drop in and replace your APIs with Data API Builder, how we can expose your data safely to agents using SQL MCP Server. We'll talk about the CI/CD implications of introducing SQL database projects, and then the built-in capabilities to embed your natural language so that you can interact with it on the back end, finding semantic similarity. This means, of course, we'll talk a little bit about full text search. We'll talk a little bit about BM25. But let's start with your application. Maybe it's a mobile application that runs on a phone, or maybe it's just a website out there, or a full fidelity application you have running on your desktop. No matter what it is, all of these principles will apply to all of them the same. But let's bring it down and talk about it architecturally. So we have this isolated in a specific place, and hopefully you have a library, some sort of repository pattern, some sort of entity framework, whatever it is that you have that you're interacting with your database directly with. Perfect. This is where we want to start. Now, that library, the first thing we want to do is create a seam inside of your application. We want to create a block of code that interacts with your database, which hopefully you already have, but we want to make it so that it is isolated, maybe in its own library, its own assembly, its own package, whatever it is, just so you can make changes to how you interact with your database without having to make changes to the business logic or the UI logic of your application. More importantly, though, in order for that to speak to the database, it uses the driver. An enormous percentage of existing applications currently use System.Data.SqlClient to interact with the database. This has been around for a long time. It's proven, it's excellent. However, it is no longer where new investments are going. Instead, we have Microsoft.Data.SqlClient as the new driver with all of the new innovations, all of the attention paid to detail around performance, security, and features. It's inside your application today because of a NuGet reference. What you need to do is change from System.Data.SqlClient to Microsoft.Data.SqlClient as a drop-in replacement for SQL data. Now, in most cases, this is not going to have to change anything on the back end for you. but you might have to change a little bit here or there to make it work. But it's a very small investment for a very large benefit. So the first low-hanging fruit in your application to be able to modernize it and really bring it to the next stage is to update your SQL driver. It's straightforward, no logic needs to change, your business stays the same, your application doesn't change. And hopefully along the way, while you're looking at your driver, you can introduce this seam so that we can start to think about modernizing your application even more. Let's take a look at your database itself. In this next stage, we want to update SQL Server. Maybe you're already using SQL Server 2022. Maybe you're still using SQL Server 2016. That's fine. We're talking about upgrading to 2025 for a host of reasons. Some of those reasons include just pure performance and security updates and small little fit and finish that have been introduced to 2025 that didn't make the cut in 2016 or 2022. But you also have the ability now to interact and use the Linux container so that your developer loop locally is interacting with a full-fledged SQL Server without requiring the developer to install SQL Server in all of its different versions. That's a huge benefit. And so running it inside of a container allows you to create an Aspire solution, allows you to create a distributed solution. Whatever makes sense to you, it's nice to be able to do it with our container. You can also now use our vector data type and represent text data, natural language data, numerically so that we can do operations against it. Specifically, we can do the approximate neighbor. So a semantic search allows me to be able to see things that are close together. For example, I can not search for dog and find dogs because there's an S, but I can search for dog and find puppy. This also, inside 2025, we have the ability now to interact with external AI models through the REST endpoints, being able to do things like embed your natural language so that you can do operations like semantic search. We have a brand new data type that is the binary JSON data type. Prior to 2025, you would store JSON data as a string. It still worked. We had a lot of capabilities around it, but we weren't satisfied. A binary JSON data type allows us to have up to 2 gigabytes of data inside a single column and interact with it in an incredibly efficient way. We've also added significant number of capabilities around JSON and kind of ancillary to that, regular expressions and other things like fuzzy search as well. Okay, now that we have upgraded our driver, now that we have upgraded our database, let's think about stage 3. Can we update our endpoints? So that library that we were talking about before for your application may have already been an API. If so, great. I want to talk about Data API Builder as a drop-in replacement for most APIs. Most APIs are CRUD APIs against the database. That's the create, read, update, delete. And maybe there's an E in there, like CRUD, so that it is executing stored procedures in the database too. All of that is nice, but not necessary. Data API Builder replaces all of that and adds a host of capabilities in addition. That allows you to say, oh, all of the code that I maintain in my API, including all the unit tests, including all the CI/CD pipeline logic, all of that can be removed and replaced with Data API Builder that gives me a REST endpoint or a GraphQL endpoint, both. And we'll learn in just a minute, it also provides an MCP endpoint that allows me to enable agents to interact with my data as well. It's completely secure, supporting almost every variant that you can think of, authorization and authentication, including RBAC at the API that allows you to introduce new database policies or custom predicates to make sure that, again, you can do so much in the database, but you can do so much here in Data API Builder, and it doesn't introduce a single line of code to your application. Data API Builder is configured by a single JSON file that allows you to point to the database and then indicate which tables, views, and stored procedures you want to expose through your API surface. All right. The next thing to think about is if we have a drop-in replacement with Data API Builder and now my library is gone, how am I going to be able to maintain the schema inside of my database, especially if I was using code first and the migrations that are built into, say, Entity Framework? The answer is SQL Database Projects. SQL Database Projects allows you to treat your database like it's code, to be able to take the schema and be able to track it over time, to be able to put it in source control just like you do your C#. SQL Database Projects is the ability to just look at your database logically, store it all as code, and then to be able to use the tooling that we've provided to be able to interact with that. I mean, just imagine that you write a store procedure and you can build it to see whether or not it compiles before you deploy it to your database. Then imagine that you make a tiny change to a table and you can incrementally deploy those updates to your database without having to redeploy the entire database or without having to write your own update script. That's SQL Database Projects. All right. The fourth stage now is to introduce a second database. The reason we introduce a second database is we're beginning our migration into the cloud. Now, this may not be right for you, but if it is, there's a lot of power here because you've already introduced Data API Builder. And earlier I said Data API Builder accepts a single JSON file to configure it. Well, if I have two databases, I can provide to Data API Builder two JSON files, one for each database, connecting to it and identifying which of the tables, which of the views and store procedures I want to expose. However, on the surface area where the application is talking to the API, nothing changes. It's a consistent surface area. The backend does the splitting off the different databases. So I can have a hybrid environment or I can have a multiple data source environment, whatever makes sense to you. And because Data API Builder supports all of Microsoft SQL, so that's SQL in the cloud, SQL on-prem, SQL MI, SQL VM, all of those things are supported, of course. But we also support Postgres, we also support Cosmos DB, and we also support MySQL, which means you can have a hybrid on-prem and cloud scenario, but you can also have a hybrid multi-data source scenario of different types, still having a single unified surface area for your API that doesn't need to change just because you have different types of backend data sources. All right, so when we go and we choose to move SQL into the cloud, at least a portional, maybe just one table, one schema, one block of data, we would choose Azure SQL Database because that's the easiest for us to start with. And then the addition that we would choose is Hyperscale because it allows us to get as small as possible for the most modest application. And then it allows us to grow endlessly into the largest application as it's successful or its ambitions grow. Finally, because we have Data API Builder, we also have SQL MCP Server. SQL MCP Server is simply Data API Builder with MCP enabled. It allows for an AI agent that's built into your application, an AI agent that's on the side, or maybe that you're interacting with through a chat interface to speak and interact with our backend data just as an application does, securely, just as an application does, in a constrained way, just as an application does, in a way that you can trust it. You don't have to give the same permissions to your agent that you give to your application. You can make them completely isolated while still using the same endpoint. You can deploy Data API Builder more than once. If you want to have it broken apart so that you can scale out, that makes sense. If you want to have more than one so that you can have your agents interacting with your data through a different API and not share it, that's fine too. It's just neat to know that you can use one for both if you wanted to. Okay, let's step back and see what this looks like in code when we modernize our application step by step together. And welcome to Visual Studio. Okay, I have my solution loaded with a handful of projects, one of which you can see is app host because I'll be using Aspire as we move forward. But next to it is my database project, which is the SQL database project we'll talk about later. Beside that is my repository. Remember, I have a library that interacts with the database for me. That's the repository. So when I open this up, I can see that I'm using Entity Framework to interact with that. But look, I just want to right click on it and say Manage NuGet Packages. So you can see the SQL Data.SqlClient. That's what we're looking for. Right. And so when we find it, you can see they're both right on top and they are really trying to show you that you are not supposed to use System.Data.SqlClient. You can see it's marked as deprecated. It even says use Microsoft.Data.SqlClient right here. So depending on which one you have selected, this is your opportunity. Maybe you could just upgrade to the latest, but also you can deselect System.Data and then select Microsoft.Data.SqlClient. I'm going to go ahead and hit F5 and run this so that we can take a look and see what's going on. I'm going to start by opening up the database project here and showing you one thing that's really important, and that is search products. Search products is the stored procedure that allows me to search for products inside of my database. Seems obvious, but let me show you that the way that I'm doing it is with the free text table. This free text table allows me not to create a regular predicate where I say where name includes or contains, but instead I can use free text, or I can use an open text search to go and find that individual value no matter where it is, including some subtle variations. Now, behind the scenes, this is using BM25. BM25 is best match 25. And so I'll go over here. You can see that it's running. I've got all of my resources here. Let me open up the graph and kind of show you how it's laid out. So I have the web app here, and I have SQL Server. So this is my server, not the database. This is the database, this brown server or database down here. And you can see the database schema has been injected into it. That's my database project. So now that it's been injected into it, it's ready to go, and my web app can run against it. So this is SQL 2022. All right, let's take a look and see what our solution looks like. It's a straightforward application that it's just intended to show us how the search against the table might work today. So your line of business application, your mobile application is far more sophisticated than this, but I could go in and I could say wireless keyboard. And when I search for it, I get 3 back. And the reason I get it back because of the mechanical keyboard, because of the Bluetooth headphones, and because of the wireless mouse. Now, this is important in a couple of ways. One, wireless showed up in the top 2, right? Bluetooth is wireless, and if I go into the details, I can see that wireless is the first word in the description, and I can concatenate the two when I'm trying to find a product. The same thing then when I go into the key, when I go to the mouse, you can see wireless is easy. And when I go into the keyboard, it is also a wireless keyboard, wireless mechanical keyboard, right? So that's the reason I'm seeing those two show up. It's a very straightforward way of seeing it. So for example, when I look for supplies, I see art supplies. When I look for supply, I still see art supplies, right? So BM25 is actually a pretty sophisticated search algorithm that allows you to find things inside of your application, and either is going to be built into the data engine that you use, or you're going to write your own from scratch, which is also possible, but not quite as efficient. All right, this is the beginning. I have SQL 2022, and I'm searching against it using a free text table. But let's change the solution over again. Great. Inside of this solution, it looks exactly the same. Only 2 things have changed. The first is I'm no longer using SQL 2022. I'm upgraded to SQL 2025. Let me show you what I mean. If I go into my app host, you could see that the database is set up right here on line 3. And I'm getting the latest of 2025. That makes sure that I'm no longer using 2022 in my local deployment environment. In my developer loop here, I get to take advantage of 2025. That's really nice. This is, of course, where I create the database itself. This is where I inject all of the schema information from my database project. And then finally, these are just the standard ways of interacting with my web application. So hopefully this makes it obvious that there's really nothing exotic going on here. Let's go ahead and run it so you can see it. And while it's building, I'm going to open up the database and show you my stored procedure. Okay, so this is search products, and you can see that it's slightly different. And the way that it's different is it's no longer using full text search. Instead, it's using vector search. And vector search allows me to look at the different vectors themselves. So I'm not looking at the string. I'm not looking at the text. I'm looking at the numeric representation, so I can do a semantic similarity instead. In a classic sense, this is when I can search for dog and find puppy. But let's just go ahead and see what it looks like. I've got the solution running. Let me pull up the graph, and you can see structurally it's identical. That's because SQL Server 2025 brings this capability without requiring you to really make significant changes on the back end for you or to your application. So let's take a look and see what our application looks like. Just like before, this is a simple product search. And what it allows us to do is just go in and say wireless keyboard and be able to find whatever possibly matches. There's a lot more that match here. You can see there's 10 items. That's because I've limited it to 10, which you can see over here where I say top number, and I'm passing in 10 as the default up here. So ranking is different when you use semantic search. I'm searching against the vector itself. And if we want to see what that is, I can add the semantic distance. And so here you can see that the closer to 0, that's the closer the distance, right? So how far apart is it? 0 would be not far at all. So 0 to 1 is where we go. So 0.4 is extremely close. So I have both a keyboard and it's wireless. We know that that's already true. This is the same result as the best match 25. But I can start doing things now that I couldn't really do before, other than being able to match all the things that are similar, like an ergonomic chair certainly has a relationship to a wireless keyboard, even if we go to the details and see nothing says wireless and nothing says keyboard. It's not extremely close, 0.75 instead of 0.4, but it still allows us to be able to find things that have similarities. So if I want to go camping, right, I could pull up the camping lantern. But maybe I just want to go outdoors. And when I go outdoors, I can see the camping lantern is right here, but so is the hiking backpack. And you could start to see the relationship of things rather than just the direct match. This is the benefit of updating just the database, right? I haven't made significant changes. Obviously, I added this column so I could show you what the semantic relationship is. Obviously, I made a change to the backend store procedures so that it uses vector instead of the raw text search using best match. But nonetheless, it's a small amount of change for a significant improvement in feature behavior. Let's change again. Now I want to go and I want a database project. So back to the database project here. Having the database project is extremely important here because in this version of my solution, I'm removing entity framework. Now, how am I going to be able to maintain all of my schema? I still can do it inside of my database. I can right click, I can build it, and I can see that all of my stored procedures, views, and tables are all accurate and they all interrelate to each other properly, but I can also publish it as well, which is pushing it up into the database and create the update script for me. I can also automate this in my CI/CD pipeline. Now, let me go ahead and get this started. And let's take a look also at the repository. So where I was interacting with it using a normal DB context inside of Entity Framework, I'm no longer doing that because now I have the same signature to those abstract interfaces that I have, but they are interacting over HTTP instead of interacting through the driver. The truth of the matter is I could now delete this folder, and I could also delete all of the Entity Framework and SqlClient from this repository, dramatically reducing the amount of code that I have, the overhead that I have. I left them both just so you could see exactly what we would do. I would have these abstractions, a category repository and a product repository, regardless of how I interact with my database through Entity Framework or through Data API Builder over an HTTP API. Now that I have everything running, let's take a look and see what it looks like in the graph. Here I still have my SQL server, which is 2025, and my SQL database. And you can see that the schema is being injected into that for me. But now instead of the web app talking directly to the database, the web app is talking through Data API Builder. This allows me now to leverage all the features inside of DAB, including things like caching and special authorization and things like that. It also gives me an abstraction layer that's extremely powerful. Let's take a look and just see. If I go in and I look at my product search here and I say wireless keyboard, I get the same behavior as before because the operation hasn't changed on the back end. It's just routed through Data API Builder. Now let's make another change and see what happens when we start interacting with hybrid data. In this case, hybrid data introduces two database projects to us. The first is the on-prem, which is SQL 2025, and the second is Azure, both deployed in our local environment as containers, but eventually would show up, one on an on-prem database somewhere inside my local network, and then another inside of my Azure subscription. we're going to then use Data API Builder, and I'll show you here. We're going to use Data API Builder, whose instruction file is right here. It allows us to say whatever the connection string is, which is injected into the container, and then all of the different objects we're going to interact with. Well, this time I have 2 instead of 1. That's because the first one tells me how to get to my local data. The second one tells me how to get to my cloud data. And I'll load the first one as the primary. And you can see here on line 10 that it points to the second. It merges these together so that I can have multiple data sources on the back end. Once it's running, I want to pull this up and just show you the graph and how the graph is different, but it's not more complex. Instead, all that we have is 2 SQL servers. We have a SQL server in Azure, and we have a SQL server on-prem. Both have their own databases. Each of those databases has their schema injected into them so that they're ready to go. And then my one and only web app talks to DAB, and then DAB distributes the query in the way that it's appropriate for that to bring it back so I can have a single surface area across the API. Okay, the last thing I want to show you is SQL MCP Server. So if you'll remember, Data API Builder is configured inside of this DAB configure file. REST is enabled and GraphQL is enabled. This now enables the MCP endpoint using the same configuration, the same set of permissions, the same set of rules, depending on how you want to have it configured. Let me show you. If DAB's still right here in the middle of everything. Jumping over to the health endpoint. The health endpoint allows you to evaluate the status of your API. More importantly, though, I can go into REST, and this is just Swagger, and I can go to the same search products store procedure. I could say, let's try it out, and I can add wireless keyboard. And when I do that and execute it, I get the same results as to when I was in the web application, because this is the same way of interacting with the database that the web application uses. GraphQL then gives me a really a rich querying interface. I'll create a brand new document with a brand new query, execute search products, where I can come down here and I can say, all right, well, let's add to the arguments the query text, and the query text is going to be wireless keyboard, and I'll ask for the name and the price, let's say. And when I run it, it executes again. The exact same set of data comes back because I'm executing the same set of queries. I'm just interacting with the data from the GraphQL endpoint. If I click MCP here, it actually doesn't work because it's expecting JSON RPC. Now let's go over to Visual Studio, where I can use GitHub Copilot as my LLM chat so you can see how to use it. Now I've already done this, and I've gone down to this button and added my tool. Now here's what's important. I've clicked the plus sign here and I've pasted in the URL, and I decided that this is going to be at the solution level and not at the global level. This is an HTTP endpoint. STDIO, by the way, is standard input-output, and it's very valuable, but just not in this case. Once I have it, one thing I want to ensure is that I go here and I've selected, and you can see you can unselect and select. So now I can go in and I can say, using product tool, search for products like wireless keyboard. What's nice is the LLM already understands how to use an MCP, and I don't have to teach it and train it how to do that. It goes ahead and executes to find all the store procedures, then run all those store procedures, and here are the results. And you can see it's exactly the same, where the mechanical keyboard comes first, then the wireless mouse, and then the Bluetooth headset. It's a powerful way of doing the same thing 3 different ways. Let's take a look at what we just did. The first thing we did was we paid attention to the database driver, moving from System.Data.SqlClient to Microsoft.Data.SqlClient, taking advantage of some of the performance improvements, security improvements, and certainly the features that are available in the new modern driver. We upgraded to SQL Server 2025, and we did that so that we could not just have all of the benefits around performance and features, but we could also start introducing new ways to interact with our data that we showed with vector semantic search. We talked about SQL database projects, being able to take the schema of our application, representing it inside our code base, maintaining it inside source control, but also automating the deployment into our UAT and production environments. We talked about Data API Builder, its unique ability to be able to drop in, replace most APIs that are out there, providing CRUD operations against the database, against multiple databases if you want, while maintaining a single constant surface area for your API. We also talked about Azure SQL Hyperscale, our cloud-based database that will scale down and up as high as we need it as things change over time. And then finally, SQL MCP Server, taking Data API Builder, enabling the MCP endpoint, and allowing agents to securely interact with our data in the same way that our applications do. There's a lot that we can do, and a lot of these are really small steps, low-hanging fruit for us to be able to modernize our applications from a database perspective. Pretty cool. All right. Thanks for listening. My name is Jerry Nixon, and I hope your next project is super successful.
Oh, man. SQL Server is just so powerful. And when they start bringing some of these tools that we've seen and that are available in smaller and other database vendors have, and they start bringing them in, it becomes just such a joy to use, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. And you know what really surprises me is how easy right now, because here's the thing. Imagine this, Jeff.
Yeah.
How hard would it be to port cloud native data for a framework and then need to do that? And then, we updated to Net 8. I don't know at the time. How are you going to do this? This is like a multi-sprint project that you need to bring tons of people. But not only is the AI optimization and modernization is getting better, but the tools around there are getting better as well.
Yeah, I love seeing an MCP in there. I love seeing how we can hook up the Data API Builder and make it so easy to start interacting when the database moves into the cloud. It is a joy to work with. And vectorization now in SQL Server, man, now I don't need to bring in 3 other databases to store and work with vector data. So Merrie with that is so cool and easy to use.
Oh, man, don't even tell me about it. Like early samples, we needed to bring multiple databases, but now vector, and then you're all done and ready to do any RAG, anything that requires vector search directly with SQL Server.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Let's go over to the slides and make sure we do our call outs here. Make sure that,
CTAs.
check out Copilot Modernization. You're going to get to see how to not just modernize your .NET applications, but also get them into the cloud and even work with your database. And you can get started right there, aka MS Copilot-Modernization, and we have the QR code for you. We have a survey for you out there. Make sure you check out the survey. You could get you have a chance to win one of $25 gift cards. Check it out at akams/.netday/survey. We even have the QR code there so you can take a picture with your phone and jump in and answer it right there on your phone while you're watching the live stream. And finally, I'm going to leave that up there for just a few more seconds. We have a LinkedIn community that is keeping folks up to date. If you don't want to follow blogs, you don't want to follow folks on social media, you've got your LinkedIn. You can join the community over there, and we have information that we'll be sharing there about modernization, about keeping up to date, and growing your application systems. Check it out right there, linkedin.com/groups/40949, or take a picture of that QR code. It'll open up in the LinkedIn app, and you'll get a chance to join the .NET community. All right. I'll give a few seconds more. There we go. Thank you so much. We need to talk about modernizing and getting onto Azure here. That's kind of a big piece, not just updating your applications, updating your database, but actually getting onto Azure. So,
Wow.
Right? And we've got a CLI that helps with that. So you don't have to work in Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio. There's a Modernize CLI that folks have been using, and they've done a real nice job of putting the TUI type of effects, right? That text user interface effects
Yeah,
around it to make it easier to do.
I
Uh,
love new CLI tools, man. They're so fancy now. I remember when I was doing like a demo for .NET, like
yeah,
.NET Conf Student Zone, and they're coming, oh, where's the TUI from your terminal? I mean, man, that's my terminal. What I'm talking about, but now it's all of everything fancy.
yeah, and we've grown up a bit from over just the last 6 to 9 months, and we're definitely making text-based UIs, the TUIs, easier for folks to build and use with .NET. So we're going to talk to Kaushaya here, who's going to show us about modernizing fast to Azure using the Modernize CLI. So let's go on over to that conversation.
Hey everyone, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're joining us from today. I'm Kaushaya Ganguly, a Senior Cloud Solution Architect at Microsoft. And today I'll show you how to modernize fast and migrate faster, moving all your legacy .NET apps to Azure at scale using the GitHub Copilot Modernize CLI, which became generally available at Microsoft Build 2026. Now, every day I work with developers who share the same frustration, right? They don't have just one legacy app to modernize, they have dozens, each one with its own technical debt, security vulnerabilities, custom libraries, and outdated dependencies. Modernizing those at scale requires an enormous amount of time and effort. And that's exactly where the Modernize CLI comes into play. Not only can it modernize your apps one at a time, it can take on dozens of legacy applications in parallel, and that's a real game changer. The Modernize CLI brings at-scale app modernization like we've never seen before. It modernizes your .NET and Java apps concurrently using cloud agents on GitHub, keeps them current through CI/CD integration, lets you define custom skills to enforce organizational policies, and much more. So let me show you how, starting with a quick intro into the Modernize CLI and then jumping straight into the demo. So firstly, I want to talk about what is the Modernize CLI, right? So 3 things. First, one CLI for the entire lifecycle of modernizing and migrating your .NET apps to Azure, hands-on or scripted. Second, it's plan-driven and agentic. It combines deterministic automation with GitHub Copilot to analyze and build a plan and guide every change, right? And third, it scales. Run it locally or delegate to cloud agents from a single app to your entire portfolio, right? So the modernization agent follows one simple loop: assess, plan, execute, with upgrade as a fast path on top. Firstly, it assesses your entire code base to surface upgrade and cloud readiness issues and produces an in-depth report, right? That report then feeds into the planning stage, which produces a reviewable strategy which you can edit before anything runs. Then it executes, applying changes task by task, validating builds, scanning security issues, and generating Azure infrastructure and more, right? And finally, if you want an upgrade as a quick path, that's also good. But we'll get into the demo of the first thing, which is assessing at scale. So let's dive right in. So first, let me show you what we'll be modernizing today. Over here in my workspace, I've got 5 different legacy .NET apps in various versions, but mostly in .NET Framework 4.8. One of them is Contoso University, which is a classic ASP.NET MVC application on .NET Framework 4.8. And instead of using cloud identity like Entra ID, it uses Windows authentication. It uses in-memory caching instead of distributed cache like Redis. It uses SQL Express instead of using managed database like Azure SQL Database. And all its configuration sits in web.config instead of a secure externalized settings, right? Which makes even small changes risky and slow. So nothing really over here is cloud friendly, nothing scales independently, and every concern is baked into a single monolith. So now that's just one app. Now, multiply that by 5 in our portfolio over here for the demo, and by hundreds across a typical enterprise, and you start to see the real challenge. So rather than tackling them one by one, we tackle them all together at scale by listing them in the repos or JSON that I mentioned, and we will modernize them all at scale. So first things first, let's get into the CLI by typing modernize, and that will get us into the interactive session for the modernization agent, where you can select the models that you have on GitHub Copilot, or you can select the default model, which I will use today. And over here, you can see that there are various pathways, right? You can do your assessment, you can do your planning and the execution one by one, or you can select a quick start scenario, which is the upgrade, which will give you the upgrade of the .NET version or Java version in one bump, right? But today we'll go into the assessment, because you can see that the assessment will give you very in-depth code-based insights like architecture diagrams, API contracts that are used, so on and so forth. We'll get into that in more detail, but let me first go next and show you that over here, you can also choose between your current folder, which is for one application. You can enter a local path or a remote URL, or you can choose a config file, which I showed earlier, where all my repositories are listed that I want to modernize. And you can see after I've chosen that, all the repositories that I want to work with today are pulled up by the modernization agent. And I select all of them because I want to modernize all of them in parallel. And the next step is that you have to choose whether you want to only upgrade, migrate to cloud, or also check security issues. So I select all of them. Then you'll be asked advanced settings. So in the advanced settings, you will see first thing is the analysis coverage, where you can choose whether you want to see only issues that need to be resolved for modernizing and migrating your application to the cloud, or do you want to do a full analysis, which will include code-based insights in addition to everything that is included in option number 1 for issues only. It will also generate architecture diagrams, what APIs are exposed in your application, what are the data models that are used in your application, so on and so forth, right? So this process does take a bit longer, but it gives you a very in-depth analysis. Next, you can choose the target runtime. So you have between .NET 8, 9, and 10. We'll choose .NET 10, which is the latest LTS version. And you can also choose the target compute services. So you can choose all targets, or you can choose a specific target that you want to assess your application against, which will only give the issues that need to be resolved for migrating to that specific compute service on Azure. But we'll choose all targets today right now, because you can choose a specific target that you want to migrate to at a later stage as well. So over here is the key, right? You can assess locally, or you can delegate to cloud agents, which is exactly the magic and the amazing part of this modernization agent, because it can assess all your applications in parallel at scale on the cloud, right? Then you can choose your output path where you want to store your assessment results, and it gives a beautiful assessment dashboard where you can see that all the assessment jobs have been submitted to a cloud agent running on GitHub, and you can also follow each of these agent sessions as well. Now, let me head over to the Agents HQ and on GitHub, and you can see that all the assessment tasks that I had submitted are running in parallel at scale, right? So no repo is waiting for the other repo to finish, so they're running all at scale. And if I go into the details of any session, you can see that the Modernization Agent MCP Server is also started, which you can see in the official documentation on how to set that up for every repo. But that basically gives you particular skills that gives the Modernization Agent particular skills during the entire modernization journey to ground it to truth and give it specialized skills to run the task. So if we pause for a minute over here, you can check that we get, after this whole assessment is done, we get a summarized view of all the applications that have been assessed in parallel at scale, right? And it gives you a beautiful assessment report in a summary, but also later you will see that we'll be able to see what are the specific issues for each of the application. So moving forward, we will see that there is an issue summary for all the applications that we are assessing today. How many issues need to be resolved for each of them, what are the recommended Azure services for all of them, what is the migration strategy recommended for my applications. It gives you a summarized view over here, which is very great if you want to have that high level insight, right? You can also see all the recommended Azure services that are also common for many of your applications, right? Like using Azure Blob Storage instead of local storage, using Azure SQL DB instead of local DB, using Azure Cache instead of local cache. So all of these things are included in addition to recommended upgrade paths. So if your applications are running on older versions of .NET, it tells you what should be the target version based on the latest LTS version of .NET, and it gives you all of that insight, and that's amazing, right? Also, you get a cost estimate over here. It's aligned with the baseline dev test environment, so it gives you a good idea how much you will pay for it in the development area as well. Now, if we go to the specific application assessments, you will get even richer details per application, right? So if I go to one of them, you will see that what are all the issues that are required to be solved for migrating this particular application to the cloud or upgrading the version of .NET, right? So over here, you can see for migrating this application to the cloud, there are several things to take care of, and they're all categorized by criticality, whether it's mandatory or whether it's optional. Same goes for the .NET upgrade. So all of these things are included in what part of the application they are, what line number it's taken from. So all of that insight is included along with a rough estimated story point as well, right? Now, next, you can see if I go into the agent session, you will see that this assessment report is actually stored in your repository. So you can provide it the context in the later stages as well. But let me go ahead and show you what other things are included as well in this assessment. So you have an in-depth architecture diagram, an architecture specification. You have what API contracts, what APIs are exposed in your application, what environment settings, what core flows the users move through, what are the dependencies that are used in your application, and imagine all your legacy dependencies as well. What are the data models that are used in your application, right? And these things take months to document, right? So you have all of these rich artifacts and documentation generated as well, so that the next steps of the modernization can take all of this as a context and move forward, right? So in the next step, let me just show you how you can do the modernization plan, right? So if I create the modernization plan, I want to always have all of this assessment insight as a context as well to create reviewable and editable plans. So let's see how we can do that. So now, the second option is to generate the plan over here. So we get into it. We will choose again the configuration file where all my repositories are mentioned. I will select all of them because I want to do this at scale as well. And in the next step, you will see that you can also execute it, create the plan locally, or you can submit to a cloud agent. For this one, I will keep the plan local because the cloud coding agent is experimental for the planning phase at this point, but you can try it on as well. Then I will create the plan and I will add the context of my assessment report along with saying that upgrade to .NET 10 and migrate to Azure and also provision the infrastructure. So literally everything that needs to be done during the modernization and migration. And you can see that the assessment report is also there in my repository. So that will be picked up as well. So let me go next, and you can see in the next phase that there will be a beautiful planning dashboard that will come up as well, which you can track And you will also see that there are specific skills like create modernization plan skill that are being invoked by the modernization agent. And that's really important, right? One of our key tasks over here when we are working with agentic development with AI agents is how we can use the proper guardrails for these AI agents, how we can ground it to the truth so that it doesn't go out and hallucinate and do anything and everything it wants, right? We want it to have the proper skills. We want it to have the proper guardrails to do the modernization and migration in a structured and as deterministic as possible a manner that we want, right? So I'm fast forwarding this because it does take a while, but you can see that for each of my applications, there is a task list that is generated. And this task list is generated based on the prompt that I gave earlier and also the context of the assessment that was done in the previous phase, right? So I'll just wait for it to finish. It'll just take a bit more time. And then you can see what are all the tasks that are created for the applications. So you can see now the task list has been created. For example, over here, it says the task number 1 is to upgrade .NET Framework to .NET 10. Then migrate secrets to Azure Key Vault. Then another task is about scanning security vulnerabilities. Another task is about generating Azure infrastructure via Bicep. Then also it will containerize and deploy the application to Azure Container Apps. All of these are amazing, right? Because it really creates a task list that it needs to follow instead of hallucinating and trying to understand on the fly, right? And you can see that my reports are also generated over there, but you can see that the plan is also saved over there, and you can edit the plan as well. You can review the plan if you think that something is not good. If you don't want to migrate to Azure Container Apps, but you want to migrate to Azure App Service, you can edit the plan as well. You are in control of what the agent does eventually, right? And there's also the task.json, which is basically what the agent uses to understand what are all the tasks that it needs to implement on. Now, the next step is to do the execution. So after doing the assessment and after doing the planning, we head into the execution. So all of these tasks, we now need to execute it, right? So let's go ahead and see how we can do that. Now, I've been showing you the interactive mode of Modernize CLI, but you also have the non-interactive mode of Modernize CLI, where you can directly type Modernize, plan, execute into the plan name, and then it can go ahead and execute it. And you have several options over here as well, where you can also ask it to delegate it to the cloud agent, where it will go off and delegate it to your GitHub cloud agent, so that you don't have to wait for it to be done locally. You can also choose the model that you want to work with, and also you can do it headless so that it doesn't prompt you for various questions and you need to answer that. So it can do it headless by adding the option no TTY. But I'll show you this in the CI/CD integration part a bit later. So let me just go into the interactive mode just for consistency to complete this execution as well. So I'll choose execute over here. I'll choose the plan that was created in my last step for this particular application, which is Contosa University, and I ask it to execute the plan. And you can see that, again, it's using specific skills to start the job. And it will go ahead and execute the plan with all the task list that I showed you earlier, and upgrade the version of .NET and provision the Azure infrastructure, and then deploy it to Azure. So let me fast forward to show you how it looks like after the execution is done, because it can take a couple of hours depending on your application. And you can see that all the task lists have been tackled. Wherever it has been a success, it will tell you that it's successfully completed the task. If it has skipped anything, it will also tell you why it has skipped. But we can see that in general, my application has been upgraded to .NET 10, and more than anything, it has also deployed the application to Azure Container Apps with the link over here, which is amazing, right? So it has done all of that using the plan-driven approach. And if we go to the original main branch, and we can quickly verify what was the version of the application before we did the modernization, we can see that it was .NET 4.8, and right now it's on .NET 10. So it was on .NET Framework 4.8, and now it's on .NET 10, which is the latest LTS, and it's also deployed to Azure, and you get the readily available link there. So this is the summary of how you can execute the application in the interactive mode, and this is just amazing, right? To see how it can readily do all of this in an agentic fashion. Next, if you want to do a quick version upgrade, you can also do that at scale by choosing the upgrade quick start scenario. So the last option over here in the interactive mode is choosing the upgrade scenario. So we did the assessment, we did the planning, we did the execution to get an in-depth assessment, and based on that do the execution, but you can also choose the quick start upgrade scenarios. Let me show you how that works. And you can do this at scale as well, right? So let me choose again all the repositories that I'm working on today to modernize. So I choose choose all of them. I select all of them because I want to work with all of them. And over here you can see again the amazing thing about this modernization agent is that you can delegate all of these upgrade tasks to the cloud so that it can do all of them in parallel. You can say you want to upgrade to the latest version, latest LTS version that's there, and it will go ahead and understand what version you are on right now, what version is the application on right now, and what is the latest LTS version, and do the upgrade accordingly. Again, you can see that there's a beautiful upgrade dashboard over here, where you can track the status of the job submission to the cloud coding agent, which is what we've chosen over here. And after all of these are submitted, we can go ahead and track what is the status of the upgrade as well. As you can see, all of the upgrade sessions have been submitted to the cloud agent, and we can go ahead and track each of them individually. Over here you can see that it's trying to upgrade the application. But if we go over to the Agents HQ on GitHub, we can see all of them running in parallel and not waiting for each other, but running in parallel at scale, right? So this might take a while depending on your applications, but I fast forwarded it again for the demo purposes. Now, you can see that for the modernization plan, the main task over here is to understand what is the current version of the application and where it needs to migrate it to. So over here, you can see it's migrating the .NET Framework 4.8 to .NET 10 because I explicitly requested it to upgrade to the latest LTS version. And it knows that .NET 10 is the current LTS version, right? So it does all of that planning as well. Now, we saw a lot about the interactive mode. Now, let me show you a demo about the headless execution and CI/CD integration. So you can do the headless execution in the terminal as well. You can write modernize upgrade. You can mention which version you want to upgrade it to. You can give the source. You can again mention you want to delegate it to the cloud because you don't want to just execute it locally. And then you can also say that you want it to be executed headless, and that option is also there with no TTY option, right? But I want to execute it there. Let me head over to my GitHub Actions workflow, and over here you can see that I've actually added the same thing: modernize, upgrade, target in a headless fashion with the source, and it will actually run the upgrade in the pipeline itself. And the target is something that you can choose when when you're, for example, running it on demand, or you can also schedule this workflow as well. So in this case, I will give you a demo of how you can run it on demand, and I will choose the latest as an option for the target, and you will see how it executes it. So the app I've chosen for this time is the eShop on Web application. And if I just head over to the workflow run, I go to run workflow, and then I can say that yes, I am okay with the latest as the default and run it. Then all of the steps for the upgrade will appear over here. So if I go into the more details, then you will see what are all the specific steps, like setting up .NET in the runner environment, downloading the Modernize CLI, running the Modernize CLI to upgrade the code. All of these things are running, right? But I won't make you wait and watch because it can take a while. So I'm just gonna go to a pre-baked version that I have run, and you can see that it took like 20 minutes for this application, but it can take less or more depending on what you have. But you can see that it created an upgrade plan, and in my upgrade plan, what I have is that it has understood what version it is on, which is .NET 8, and then upgraded it to .NET 10. And it tells me, the upgrade, it has been complete as well. But you can also verify it yourself by going to this. There is the display result summary over here, and you can go to the branch, and in the branch you can verify that currently I am on .NET 10, and previously, for example, on the main branch, it was on .NET 8. So just a quick verification, and it's amazing, right? Because you can really include this headless execution within your CI/CD pipelines, and it will keep your applications current. So moving on, custom skills, right? How you can now teach your agent your organization's patterns and policies, right? Because there might be so many things that the agent needs to adhere to. So let's look into how it can do that as well. So in your repository, within the .github folder, you can define the skills for the agent to work with. Over here, I have two skills that have been defined. The first one is a local file to blob storage migration skill. But the important thing is that you need to add the description very well, because based on the description, the agent will pick up this skill. Over here in this description, I've said that I want to replace a local file system with Azure Blob Storage, and also replace it with managed identity. I give sample code. I give verification checks so that the agent can really have all that context, right? Same goes for my next skill, where I am trying to replace SQL Server local DB with Azure SQL, and replace also the authentication with managed identity, give it a sample code, give it verification checks as well, and it can really use all that context. And so let me head back to the terminal and show you how you can run this as well in a non-interactive mode by doing modernize plan, create, and then you can add the prompt, which is in this case migrate local storage to Azure Blob Storage, which is what it will use to verify against the description. You can give a plan name. You can delegate to the cloud agent as well. You can choose a model or keep it as auto as well, and you can run it, right? And so let me just quickly run it to show you how it looks like. So it's creating the cloud agent job to create the plan, and you can see that the plan has been successfully submitted to the cloud agent over here. And if I just go over to the session, just to show you how it looks like and to verify whether the skill has been used, I'll just wait for it to complete in fast forward mode, and you will see over here that there are specific artifacts that are also generated, like the plan.md and the task.json that I showed you earlier. but also it gives you a plan summary. And more importantly, it gives you a task list, right? And in the task list, it tells you for each of the tasks, which scale was invoked. And this is important because over here, for my first task, the project scale was invoked for migrating to blob storage as opposed to the built-in task for the security verification. And the project task is exactly what I showed you earlier, is what I have defined as my custom skills, right? So if I head over to the artifacts that were created to the plan, you can verify even more, what plan was created. But pretty much this is the confirmation that that my custom skill was utilized for what I want to do, right? Now, so we've talked about a lot of things. So let's do a quick recap about everything. So 4 things to take with you, right? First, one loop for every app. Assess, plan, and execute with upgrade for a quick version upgrade. Then build for scale. Give the agent a repos.json for your whole portfolio and delegate to cloud to run them in parallel. Then you can automate it to run it in headless and CI/CD pipelines. And then you can make it your own with custom skills to teach it your standards. So one agent from first scan to running it on Azure. You have everything in one go, right? So you have many ways to run it as well. There, it's split neatly into 2 on the slide. The top row is how you invoke it. The Modernize commands on its own launches the interactive UI, or you can use a non-interactive method for scriptable automation and go fully headless for continuous integration. And the bottom row is how you can scale it. You can delegate to cloud agents, drop it in CI/CD pipelines for scheduled or on-demand runs, and target an entire portfolio to modernize. So now, finally, everything I've shown you today is at aka.ms/GHCP modernization agent. Bookmark it, start with the quick start, and point it at your own .NET apps. Modernization used to take months. Now it takes days. That backlog you've been putting off, you can start clearing it off today. So go ahead, modernize fast and migrate faster to Azure using the GitHub Copilot modernization agent. And hope you enjoyed this session. Thank you very much, and looking forward to see you in the next session.
I tell you, the speed, the quality just keeps coming back on these things, doesn't it, Pablo?
It doesn't. And here's the thing amazing about the CLI part. I'm gonna ask you, Jeff. I gotta actually throw you back a question. What do you think about CLI? Do you prefer going to the VS Code route, the Visual Studio, the CLI? Do you have any preference?
I'm torn because for how many years I was a Visual Studio guy. Like, I was in Visual Studio day in and day out, and that's where I worked. And man, I'm okay with the TUI. I'm okay with the command line, but this is about getting tools where you prefer to work. And if we have the same features on the command line that we do in Visual Studio, I'm okay with that. It definitely looks like we've got a much more powerful and capable tool set here at the command line. And I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, and folks even ask, like, what is the capabilities of the command line? Imagine that you can do a lot of things with the command line. Because here's the thing, you can not only describe what you want, but you have quicker responses. You can have everything at once, and you can check even. Some folks even ask, oh, do you need GitHub? You don't need GitHub. You just add in the prompts. Don't do any pit stops on GitHub. Automate, at my own branch here locally, or don't even create a branch. Don't even create a local branch. Let's do completely headless and go forward.
You're touching on a really good point there, that these tools and features we're describing and showing, you don't need to use GitHub. You don't need to use Visual Studio. You can work at the command line. You can use your own local models, but they work so much better when you do use GitHub, and you do use Azure, and you do use the language models that we're providing for you. You can choose and use whatever you'd like with them, and the goal is the same. I think we want to make sure that everybody can improve their applications faster.
100%. By the way, Jeff, I do have a question.
Okay.
I believe we should talk about like the thing that we got pinged about earlier.
Yeah, so this is there was an ongoing series of questions that were coming in on chat that folks were really concerned about estimating costs and tokens and AI credits. How does that all fit together, and how can we budget and work with the tool set and have a little bit of insight as to how much it's going to cost? And we took those questions, went to the product team, and they are working on some features to make those estimates a little bit more visible in the product. And this product is going to be continually evolving, and you're going to see it come out here in the very near future, that there will be cost estimates included in your interactions with Copilot for modernization.
Yeah. And not only that, folks, we need to remember that a lot of those demos and things we recorded even like before anything came out. So it's not like
Yeah.
we're still like assuming on a lot of the premium request part. So, but don't worry, we got the feedback. We're gonna improve for next time.
Oh yeah. And when we were building the session and for build, the challenge we kept facing was, okay, here's what we're going to lock down and what we're going to show off, and there's features we wanted to talk about that weren't released yet, or there's things that we were going to be talking about that changed within the following week or two when the next release came out. So this is a fast moving and growing product that is only going to improve and make your modernization journey better, right?
Yeah.
So I think we need to put up the call to action for the survey, because I think this is the second to this might be the second to last time that we talk about it. I think I'm pointing the right direction now. We were joking during the last session that I was pointing the wrong way. I think I'm pointing the right direction now. We're giving away $25 gift cards. And if you go to aka.ms, .NET Day/survey, fill out our survey, let us know what you think of the event, let us know what you think of the product. And we take all that feedback very seriously, and you could win a gift card. The QR code is there for you as well.
Yep.
I think we need to get into the next session, though, with our friend Guarav and Andrew, talking about agentic functionality. So once you modernize, there's some cool things you can now add into your applications. And pardon my dog in the background misbehaving, but you can start adding agentic features. Yes, thank you, Morrow. Yes, Wolf in the back. There he is.
Another one, yeah.
You can start to add agentic features into your applications to make them smarter for your customers, for your users. So let's head on over and talk to Guarav and Andrew about adding agentic features to our applications.
Yeah.
Hi, we hope you're enjoying the event today. Welcome to this session on modernizing .NET applications and adding agentic functionality in minutes. I'm a Principal Product Manager on Azure App Service, and today I'm joined by two of my excellent colleagues, Jordan Selig and Guarav Seth. Today we're going to go through a number of different aspects of modernization and agentic functionality, all the things that you can take advantage of on Azure App Service. So when we think about modernizing and agentifying applications in minutes, what do we really mean? So we're going to go through three main phases. Number one, what are the modernization challenges? And then two, how do we address those challenges and really accelerate your modernization journey? And finally, we're going to wrap up with number three, adding agentic functionality in minutes, giving you the power to add AI capabilities to your existing applications quickly after modernizing to Azure App Service. Modernization challenges encompasses a huge range of different problems that customers face as they look to migrate and modernize their application estate. Through years of research and working with customers, we've come across most of these, and we've identified buckets into which we place most. They come across as application dependencies, maybe your application has a dependency on a particular library, say a reporting library, that produces outputs for your customers, be they internal or external. Maybe you have a dependency on a particular configuration system, or maybe you store your settings inside, say, a Windows registry. Other application dependency that we can think of is maybe you need a Windows server role or a particular feature to be enabled in order for your application to be successful. MSMQ client, for example. Then we come down to local and network file I/O. So often applications need to call out or write to disk storage, be that temporary, be it over drive letter, be it across network for a variety of different endpoints. These come up as serious problems for customers when they're looking to modernize. When you're moving to a platform as a service platform like Azure App Service, you get reduced access to infrastructure. That is often a friction point for our customers. Does that give them problems? Does the application need to be able to read and write locally? Am I dependent on tooling that I've used for years, but I don't know how to work in a non-touch environment? So we come on to changes in tooling. So how do I go from having physical access to an instance and being able to use things like Event Viewer, iNet Manager, huge amount of different tools or scripts that I've built up over the years? How do I work around that? How do I live in this new environment? In-process session state often comes up. Now, this is often a challenge with just scaling applications, be it from you going from one single instance to multiple instances, but it comes up more and more as customers might modernize and migrate to the cloud, primarily because our platforms are intended to be stateless. So having session state stored within inside a single instance, which could be replaced at any one time, is often a challenge. Bringing all these together just presents a massive challenge for customers in that they see that migration takes far too long. Often they're looking at a migration journey that's going to take months. Maybe it's got a vast amount of rework. And so often these projects get shelved because there just isn't a quick return on investment. So over the last year, 2 years, we've been working on addressing these challenges and accelerating modernization. It's a constant battle for us, and it's a constant thing that we're looking to improve and constantly provide options for our customers. Last November, we were proud to announce Managed Instance on Azure App Service, and this is announced in public preview, and the aim of this offering is to accelerate the move to PaaS. Preserve your Windows dependencies, unlock the scale, the security of the Azure App Service platform, and also the easy ability to add Azure AI to your projects. And you're deploying on top of Premium V4, which is our fastest and newest SKU that we've made available to customers. Capabilities of Managed Instance on Azure App Service. You can bring your dependencies with your applications through an installation script or a configuration script. So maybe you need to run a custom MSI to install a component. Maybe you need to install something into the GAC. Maybe you need to go and enable that server feature. You can use storage mounts for local and remote files over to your network shares or for local ephemeral storage. Registry adapters. So you can use a registry adapter to read and write back to the registry on the Windows instance. This is all backed by Key Vault secrets. One of the underpinnings of everything that we build is with security at focus and at heart. You can use familiar tools for troubleshooting via Azure Bastion, so secure RDP access for the first time ever to Azure App Service. On top of that, because you built on this vast platform, you can take advantage of platform scale and maintenance. For example, we maintain the OS underneath and we patch that regularly. You have the ability to be able to scale and grow across many, many regions globally. You can go from 1 instance to 30 instances at the click of a button, rather than massive amortization projects and budgeting constraints. You can modernize and expand your application value with AI. I'm going to hand over now to my colleague Guarav, and he's really going to give you a deep, rich demonstration of how you can accelerate your modernization using Managed Instance on Azure App Service.
Thanks, Andrew. So as you can see on my screen, what I currently have is a classic form-based web application using Framework 4.8, and that's what I've got open on Visual Studio. Now, as you can make out very easily from my web.config, that I am using log4net to publish logs to a folder of which is called h:temp. I'm also using local SMTP to send out mails from my application. And if I switch over to the other, as Andrew mentioned, just to demonstrate that how to make use of registry adapters, I'm actually getting my database connection string from the registry. So the first step in my modernization journey would be, how do I ensure that this application is ready for migration to managed instance on app service? And what I can simply do is I can right click on modernize. Once I click on modernize, I basically get transported to GitHub Copilot. And within GitHub Copilot, I can go ahead and select that I want to migrate this application to Azure. Once I do that, I'm actually presented an assessment report. And as you can see, if it is a framework web application, the default target provided to me is Azure App Service Managed Instance. And as you can see over here, I have 0 mandatory issues. That means I really don't have to fix the issue to move this application to Azure App Service, while I may have some potential issues. And you can see here that when it comes to logging, I am using web.config. We clearly kind of tell it to you that if you are targeting managed instance on Azure App Service, prefer App Insights, but you can still use the same logging. And just to make this very clear quickly, what if I go ahead and change the target to Azure App Service Windows? You can now see the mandatory issue count changes to 2. So that means if you were to migrate this application to Azure App Service Windows the way we have it for more than a decade now, I mean, you will need to make code changes. And that was the prime reason why we went ahead and called a public preview for this service at Ignite last year. So once I have this application, which is ready for migration now, what's my next step? My next step starts by creating a new resource called as Managed Instance on App Service. So you come over to create a resource option within your Azure portal. You start typing Managed Instance. And you can see here, Web App for Managed Instance. I can click on Create. Now, the experience here is not very different from what you have already been using. So I can go ahead and create a new resource group, or I can use an existing resource group. So I'm going to use an existing resource group. I'm going to give the web application a name. Now, one interesting point, you can see here that the runtime list is really small when you compare to App Service Windows. And the only reason here is because these are the runtimes which are available by default. That does not mean that you cannot go ahead and, let's say, run a Java application on this or a Python application if it requires Windows OS. One key point to understand here is that Managed Instance on App Service is currently available only for Windows OS. In terms of region, we continue to add more and more regions as we speak. So I'll go ahead and select West Central US. And in terms of the pricing plan, Managed Instance on App Service is only available on PV4. So you can select any SKU within the PV4 pricing tier. If you want, you can enable zone redundancy. Now, this is the screen where things start getting a little bit different in terms of experience. So you can see we have the concept of why am I requiring a container or a zip file from the storage account. So the idea is, if you remember, when I showcased this application over here, if I just go back to web.config quickly, I am requiring a local SFTP server, and I do require log4net, and I require a temp logs folder available. So what I can do here is, and of course my application uses custom font installation to be rendered. Now, so what I can do is I can create a PowerShell script, and I have to name it as install.ps1. And within the PowerShell script, you can see what I'm doing. I am installing the custom fonts that I require, and then I'm also enabling the SMTP server role on the underlying managed instance. And you can see here, this is the entire zip file. These are the contents of the zip file. So that's my install.ps1 installation script that I just showed, and these are all the custom fonts that I require. Now, if I flip back to the portal, so what I've done is I've gone ahead and uploaded my script to a container called script container. You can also see that within the storage account, I also have a couple of classic file shares, and I'm going to talk about those a little bit later. So what I do here is I first select the storage account. I'll have to type in this zip file name for the simple reason that the entire communication is secured using managed identity. So what happens behind the scene is we are basically going to use the managed identity that you see under the identity section to have secure communication once the instance boots up. That's the managed identity using which we are going to talk to the underlying storage account, download the zip file, unzip it, and then go ahead and run the installation script and follow the step sequence that you would have provided us. Again, remember what we are doing is, as part of the creation of the managed instance for app service plan, I am also deploying a web application. So if I want, I can point it to a GitHub repo and pull the code during deployment. And obviously, I will have to enable the public access. And now here is another difference. Instead of having all web applications being individually configured to use VNet integration, what you do within managed instance is you go ahead and select the virtual network. And now that effectively means that the entire plan is tied or is configured to use this virtual networking. And now you go ahead and enable virtual network. You select a subnet, and then you click on review. So what's going to happen behind the scene once I go ahead and click on create, this will basically go ahead and use the ARM template to provision, manage instance, download the installation script, run the installation script. If there are any installers to be installed, we will go ahead and install those installers. So that's how it works behind the scene. I already have a plan created. And if I now head over to the configuration option, you can see pretty much the same details that I showed you. Under mounts, now if you remember, I require a H:, file folder, and then I also require K:, and L:, because that's where I'll go ahead and store the mails which get generated from my web application. Under registry key, you can see I do have a registry key which is created, and this is the registry key which is storing the database connection string. Now, the important point to note here is vault. So what happens over here is that security is the most important construct that we have used right from the beginning. So you will create a key vault secret, and the actual registry setting or whatever value you want to provide for the registry setting is the key vault secret. You give us a key vault name, you give us the secret name, and then at the runtime when we have to write the registry file, we'll go ahead and populate the value. If I just go back briefly to mounts, I click on new storage mount. I can create 3 different types of mount. It can either be an Azure file, or it could be a custom mount, meaning If you want to use a file share, which could be within Azure or even in your own network, as long as it is reachable over the VNet, I mean, you can use custom, or you can simply use local and map it to any drive letter. So if I go back to Azure Files for a moment and I give it any name, I now select the storage account. Then I select the file share. I select the secret, which contains the file connection string, and then I can provide any drive letter or a path. Maybe I can say pcolon. So what will happen behind the scene? A new local mount will be created, mapped to pcolon, and it will actually be pointing to mount fs file share within the storage account. Similarly, for the sake of troubleshooting, if you want to enable RDP, that's how you enable it. So if you have this checkbox selected, that's where the RDP is available. If I go back to instances, I can even, and how do I open RDP? Click on connect, or if before that, if you want to restart this instance, you can click this and instance gets restarted. Once I click on connect, I will have a secure connection established using Bastion. So once I have logged in, I'll go ahead and open File Explorer. And if I see, you can see here I have all the mounts created. And then if I just want to see the script logs, I can go to installation script and I can actually see that my script has been run and it has executed successfully. Similarly, for adapters, I can see the logs over here. Now you can use RDP experience to maybe do a troubleshooting. You can use it, you do event logs, or you can go ahead and view the configurations on iNet Manager or do any other changes. But remember, if you make any changes directly within the RDP, and for any reason, if the instance gets restarted, all changes will be lost. So the right way to persist your changes is to create the installation script the way I explained, and then go ahead and upload the installation script. So every time, be it a scale up, scale out, or restarts for maintenance, we will always download the installation script and rerun all the steps that you have provided us. Now here is the app that I have created. If I just click over here, that's my app. Now I want to show you something very interesting. I'll go back to Visual Studio for a moment. And you can see I have a product inventory controller within my application. Now, again, this is a very common pattern for most of the web applications. You can see here that I have get and post methods using which I can update inventory, or I can pull the status of different inventories. What I've done is I already have a Swagger file as well. So before I get to Swagger, you can see we have a new option within the Blade. It's called AI with the option preview, because this is something we've just launched brand new at Build 2026, and we are calling it in-build MCP server. So the concept is pretty simple. If you have a REST API and the REST API exposes methods which are still super useful for your agentic workflows. For example, that's what my colleague Jordan is going to talk next. But if you have, let's say, an application that requires access to these REST endpoints while it is using agents and talking to LLMs behind the scene, that's where you can use your existing REST endpoint and expose all the functions as tools for your MCP server. And it's pretty straightforward. No code changes, nothing. You give us the name of the server, that's the endpoint, description, and what you simply do is you go ahead and upload a OpenAPI 3.0 spec file. Once you give us the spec file, we'll go ahead and get all the tools mapped out from your JSON file. And I'll give you a quick example over here. This is my Open API version 3 spec file. You can see over here. So you just give us this file, upload the file once you create a new MCP server, and we will go. And if you want, you can even configure validation and authentication for your MCP server. So again, without making any change, the idea here is I have used GitHub Copilot to help you with deep dive assessment. You've now brought in your forms-based application over to manage instance on app service without making any code changes. And now the existing REST API is being exposed as a MCP server so that your existing business logic can participate into a modern agentic workflow. And that's what my colleague Jordan is going to demo. So over to you, Jordan.
All right. Thank you very much. And the first thing I'm going to do is take you over to the slides, actually, and just give you a quick overview of what you're about to see. So this right here is a quick architecture diagram. What you've seen so far today is a legacy app on the right over there that we've migrated to app service, and then without any other code changes, enabled MCP capabilities. So this is where that becomes extremely useful. Let's imagine you've had some automation to automate your inventory management. For the sake of today's demo, I built this on App Service. It consists of 6 different agents, and one of those agents connects to your legacy app with the MCP server that you've exposed. And with that MCP access, it's able to pull the inventory to monitor stock, and as also update stock once it places orders and fulfills those orders. So if I take you to the next slide, you'll be able to see what some of those agents look like. Again, it's not that important, the details of this agentic app that I've built here. I built it with Microsoft Agent Framework, and this is just showing that you can host it on App Service if you wanted to do this. And the reason I'm hosting on App Service is to show you another feature a little later on. But with that, I'll take the next slide. I'll show you how the MCP server is consumed. So basically, there's an endpoint there. That's the endpoint for the built-in MCP feature that we created in the previous demo. And that's basically it for consuming this. This is just Microsoft Agent Framework consuming the MCP endpoint and using it for the agents that I've created with it. And then on the next slide, and again, this will come in a bit later, what you're seeing here is how we are enabling open telemetry and the GenAI semantics for all of our agents. And we're doing this because we want to be able to trace every agent and every tool call and get that visibility later on in some of the features I'm going to demo. So with that, I will take you into the Azure portal to show you what this looks like. So this is the agentic app that I've deployed on App Service following the Microsoft Agent Framework and 6 agents that we've seen. The first thing I'll do is take you into environment variables just so you can see that we are connected to the MCP server. So this right here is the app that you previously saw. And I will take you over to the app that I built. So this is my agentic app. I built a quick interface for it so you can see how it works. Right here, it's using MCP to pull the inventory, and you can see that everything is basically in good stock right now. So on the side over here, I'm going to simulate a sale because I want to demonstrate what happens when something goes out of stock. So I have a script that's randomly going to select one of these items and one of the sizes, and then simulate an outage. So it looks like it's running. And I refresh the page. It decided to sell out of the size small navy single-breasted blazer. So I take you to the dev shop app that you've seen all day. We find the item. You can see that the size small is now out of stock. All right, so I'm going to trigger the agents to figure out what's going on here and update our inventory. So right now it's running through different agents. You can see it's polling MCP. one of my agents is actually looking at historical sales data to determine how many units to order. So you can see here it's used some reasoning, it used historical sales data, and it's saying that we should order 15 units of that navy blazer. And I'm just going to approve that and then give it a second to fill. And we should see it automatically update our inventory. So behind the scenes, it was just simulating an order and then a fulfillment. And with Demo Magic, it happened within a couple seconds. And you can see that we now have everything in stock. And if we go back to our store and refresh, we should see 15 size small. And to round things out, I'll take you back to the AI blade that you saw earlier and take you over to the other tab, the Agents tab. And this is where you're getting that visibility into all the agents that are being used as part of your app. So if you're enabling OpenTelemetry and the Gen AI semantics, you'll be able to see all of this information, as well as if you wanted to go into application insights, if this is hooked up to your app, you can get even more details about what your agents are doing. And if anything's wrong, see what's happening there. So to wrap things up, that was just a quick way to show you how you can take your legacy app, migrate it to app service, and then quickly and easily add agentic capabilities with no code changes whatsoever. So with that, I'll go back to the deck and wrap things up for today. So here's a couple resources if you want to learn more about anything you saw today. We have docs on managed instance, the built-in MCP feature, as well as a tutorial on how to host agentic apps on app service. And we also have our Build 2026 recap. So if you missed some of the announcements that came out of that, check out that blog post. And with that, I'd like to thank you all for attending today and enjoy the rest of .NET Day.
Oh, it's amazing how much they've added into app service. This Azure service that's been around for a long time and really leveled it up and made it much more capable.
Oh my God. And I gotta say one thing related to that, right? Is that folks usually think that, as I told you, I believe last session, Jeff, like it is not only AI that is evolving, but the tooling around AI is evolving, right? So everything now is like aiming to be the best as it can, because now the AI capabilities allows such speed on deploying and doing things that now you need to have like better tooling. You need to have better even cloud. Now we need to evolve cloud faster than expected because of it.
That's a great point, Pablo. Not only do our frameworks, do our tools, do our languages get better, but our infrastructure is getting smarter and better. So it's easier to adapt and take advantage of new capabilities. It's so good to see those cool new features in the managed instance. I think we need to do one more call out for our survey here.
Yeah.
There it is. It's right over there. I got the pointing right again. We're giving away $25 gift cards. Get your name in, fill out our survey, aka ms.netday/survey. Take a picture of that QR code and you can get in, fill out the survey. Let us know what you think of today's event. Let us know what you think of the modernization tools, and you have a chance to win a gift card for $25. I think, I'm not sure. We're going to get in and talk to our colleague Bruno next.
Yeah. Bruno's going to talk about the lots of how to make smarter even apps with modernization done.
Yeah, right. Getting agent framework actually boiled into your .NET applications. I know Bruno loves talking about this, and he talks about it a bit during his AI stand-up. And there's one of those tomorrow coming up. Yeah. So let's hand this over to Bruno and learn a little bit more about adding agent framework into .NET.
Let's go,
apps.
Bruno.
Yeah.
Hey, hello everyone. My name is Bruno. I'm part of the DevRel team at GitHub and Microsoft, and I'm super happy to be here to close this event and to also talk what else we can do once we finish putting our application with the latest and greatest that we have in .NET. That said, let's see what we are going to see today, which is basically how we can make an application smarter, how we can pick up an existing application and start to use, of course, AI and other topics to really make it work. And we have the foundation. I mean, we already migrated everything. We already modernized everything to everything that we have. And I know that we talk about Aspire, we talk about MCP and more. And what I want to share today is a couple of examples, real examples of how we can pick up an existing application and add more cool and useful features related to the user experience, how we can improve the user experience, or how we can make it better when we integrate application, or maybe with the traces and log and more. So that's the idea of what I want to show today. In order to do this, I am going to continue use the eShop Lite in this scenario. Not continue, I mean, we use eShop for the demos. What we have is a light version that is doing kind of just the front end, the back end, and is doing queries. Queries for the eShop and eShop as an outdoor product store. Once we have this, what we can start to do is start to focus in a different set of scenarios to make the application work better. So, in example, we've been doing keyword search for a long time. And now that we have LLMs and we have embeddings and we have vector databases, we can start to do semantic search. We can start to do kind of hybrid search and talk about ranker and more. And at the beginning, those scenarios, those words, those terms they're very scary, but they are not complicated. The whole idea here is, an example, is to pick up a set of products, that the one database with products that we have in this shop, and start to work there with literally what we have for, in this case, is outdoor products. We are going to put those products also in a vector database, and we are going to perform a search. How this looks, how this works. So it's basically something like this. I have here running eShop Lite. So I have here running the application. This is running in Aspire. You are going to see that we have a couple of services here. This is Aspire dashboard. Let's hide the parameters. So we have the front end, which is the store that is connected to the product. Let's put a pin to the observability later. And the product is running with a SQL Server database. I try to make it kind of real, and I know that I am a very big fan of SQL Server, so we have here the SQL Server. And the idea is that when we perform a search, like an example, cooking, and we do a standard search, we are not going to find anything. We can start to take a look at the traces here in Aspire, and we are going to see that the front end is calling the back end, is doing an API search for products, and hey, we didn't have anything. And again, observability, let's put a pin there for that. But what's happening if we use a semantic search? A semantic search, the idea here is that instead of searching for keywords, we are going to search for the meaning. And the meaning in this scenario is something related to cooking. And because we sell outdoor products, we are going to provide products that are related to cooking. So if we go here and scroll down, we see that we have a camping cookware and a camping stove. That makes sense. It's interesting. How about if we search something for a rainy day? So we are not going to talk about a product specifically. We are going to ask for a rainy day. So when we do this, what we are going to have is, of course, after a couple of seconds, we are going to have some options for rainy day. That's basically, yes, rainy day criteria. We have a rain jacket, makes sense, and a survival kit. I don't know why a survival kit, but it's part of experience. The cool part of doing this is we provide a much better experience. By the way, this is work I am going to explain with embeddings and more, but we can trace everything here. We can go back to the traces here. Let's go and search for products, so it's easier. Let's go for the last one, and we can see each one of the steps that we have here. And each one of the steps here, we have the AI search, where we can see that we are searching with OpenAI because I am using a model in the cloud. I am using a GPT-5 mini model. And then we have here the Zen AI experience. These sparkles here are the details that basically show us that, hey, we are working with this model in the chat. We only trace when the model stops answering, so we don't have tons of traces here, but everything is here. And how moving from a keyword search to a semantic search, how complicated is this? How easy or complicated? So let's take a look at this. So this is our Aspire host for this scenario. We are using a SQL Server. We have a couple of secrets here that Aspire is managing for us, like the endpoint, the API key, deployment name for the chat, and also an embeddings. And by the way, I'm using an API key, and you can use managed identities where you have all of the integrated identities. So you don't, if you're using Entra, that works also, or you can put the endpoint, the deployment name, and the API key. With this, we are going to build the backend, which is the products that is going to reference the database and is going to use the Azure OpenAI environment variables. And then the front end is going to use the backend. That's it. And how we can create this vector database. This is the part that is interesting because, and you've probably seen this in previous sessions, we have access to a lot of libraries to do this in .NET. We have access to Microsoft Extension for AI. So I have here a memory context library in this sample that is going to get the chat client and is going to get the embedding generator. And what it's going to do at the first time that we run the application is going to create a vector store in memory. And this is important. I am going to create one in memory, but you can move forward and you can create your vector stores using Quadrant, ChromaDB, Azure AI Search, or more. This is just a sample, so it makes sense to do this. And by the way, there are easier ways to implement this. This is just for example. Then we have a couple of system prompts, and what we are going to do, we are going to iterate through each one of the products that we have in the database, and we are going to create a product vector with that using embeddings, and then add this to our vector database using an upsert. Interesting part here is that once if our product is updated, we just regenerate the embedding from the product and we upgrade the vector database. And there are different strategies also to do this. Once we have this, we can start to do the search. But we are not just going to search by meaning. We are going to have a query, and when we have a query, we are going to say, hey, vector database, do a search async and give me top 3 results. And when we have a result, we are going to have a product related, an example for a rainy day, and we are going to have a score. And the score is basically how close is these two terms of this. Maybe I have a very low score when I have a, I don't know, an outdoor set of shoes, or maybe because it's raining, the rain jacket is going to be a high score. With this score, we are going to filter for the one that's over 30%. This is just a sample. And at the end, we want to improve the user experience. So we are going to pick up these 3 products, and using an LLM, the GPT-5 mini LLM, we're going to create a better response. So pick up these 3 products, pick up the original question, take a look at the scores, and give me a better response. And this is what we see here, that, hey, something for a rain? Yes. Options for a rainy day, we have these 2. And hey, why do we have this? Why do we have that? That's the power of the LLM. So we move standard keyword search to a better one. But we've seen this in the past. I mean, if you've been working with LLM, that's something that we've been done. That's something that we already been a couple of times doing. This is kind of a RAG approach, more on this and that. But how about starting to do more? Right now, we also have libraries and have features that allows us to work with local AI, with local LLMs, with local embeddings. So this is a moment that we need to start to think about what else we can do, what else we can work in an application to add more intelligence. So in example, we have Aspire. And Aspire is great. One of the things that I love about Aspire when I work locally is the dashboard, because I can see the logs, I can see everything that's happened. But how about creating a model, observability model? This is a service that is going to work using local services, local LLMs, and local embeddings, and is going to analyze what is happening in my application, and is going to give me traces about that. And this is important. This is interesting because at this moment, what I am going to see is, hey, I can start to make a mix between big models on the clouds and local LLMs. I may not need to use always a big GPT-5 mini model on the cloud to do a summary or to do kind of an analysis. I can use local models. So this implementation for this scenario, the same that we were looking, is let's run an observability model that is going to run locally. So let's give this a try. So here, let's do another query, something like an example, something to paint my room white. Let's search for this. We are not going to have a response here because we don't have anything. This is an outdoor store, not selling paint or brushes and more. But you also see this check. This check is a trick for the demo. This check, when I run a query and I check this inject search failure, we are going to trigger a run in the backend. So once I have this, hey, no, this is not the response that you are looking. You want a room white? Not for this. So let's pick up another one, and let's pick up, let me take a look at my autocomplete options. Let's do something in Spanish, in example. because, by the way, this works great in Spanish. And I'm going to make the search. And as I said, because I check this, we are going to have some errors. So we can go here, take a look at the resources. Let's go to the resources, and we see that we have a couple of errors. And this is expected. This is, I force an error. But at this moment, what I can do, I can start to work with this observability assistant. So let's take a look at the assistant, and let's analyze the last 5, 10, 15 minutes. So analyze the last 10 minutes of this application. What is it going to do? It's going to use Foundry Local to analyze what we have here. If you want to learn more about Foundry Local, please check the resources of the session, because you are going to find there the option that we have. What I like about Foundry Local is it automatically installs everything that you need and download the model. And of course, you download the model the first time and you start to work, and the second time is already in the cache, so it's only going to load this, and that's it. What you can see here is I am running with the version 08119. If I take a look here to my service status, it says, yes, it's running here because I literally called this, so automatically start, warm up, everything. And I have it running in this local URL. I have a couple of providers. I have a GPU in my machine, so I have a GPU CUDA execution provider. I also support OpenVINO, and I also support the ND Tensor, and I support, of course, CPU loaded for this. And if I take a look at the models that I have here in my cache, I have a couple of 5 models, 3.5 mini, 3.5 mini Struct for CUDA, and the standard one, and a 5.4. Why I have a couple of models? Because depending on the scenario, I may want to use a more powerful model or a local model. I can even use Qwen models. I can do a lot. The Foundry Local has tons of models that we can use locally. And I can say here, where are my models? And it's going to say some C user, or I can't remember the location, but they are in the cache locally. If I go back to my application, we will see here that, hey, analyze 10 entries. I've been using this for a couple of minutes. Group this in 8 clusters. Use a local embeddings library that I created for Onyx for this, and then say, okay, everything was fine, but when someone asks for illumination item, file it with HTTP 500, then we have another 500, and remember, this is important. This is illumination item in English, and in Spanish, algo para alumbrar de noche is literally meaning that I am searching for something to have lights at night. So even if it's a local model, it supports multi-language and more. And we have kind of an overview of what we have, how we can do this. If you want to take a look how this works, let's take a look at the scenarios. As you can see, there are 15, 18 scenarios that we have in this repository. Again, part of the samples. And this one is number 13. If we go here to the source code and we take a look at the observability assistance, there are a couple of interesting things here. First of all, we have an APP settings where we are going to define different models. This right now I'm working with 3.5 mini because it's super small and super fast. This is a 2 GB model. Then we have options to go big, like 4 mini, 4 normal, which is 8 GB, or even we can use a Qwen 2.5 model, which is very structured. I love this one to analyze code, an example. For the chat settings, I am going to use a very, very less creative model with the temperature 0.2, probably need to be 0.1 or 0. And for embeddings, I am using an all mini LM, which I think it's around 80 megabytes of size. So these are small models that run locally. If I go here to the program, this all starts loading the settings, and when the settings are loaded, are going to initialize everything with the model alias, and we are going to have the configuration section, and we are going to initialize the chat, and then for the local embed is the same. And of course, at the end, what we have here is the analyzer that is going to load the chat model, load the embedding, and then start to work with the prompt like, hey, you are an observability assistant, analyze this log entry, and do A, B, C, and D. So it's not very complicated, and we are taking kind of our application to the next level because we can now analyze those logs. We can now take a look. And of course, if you are a developer, you can probably go here to the logs and start to see what is happening. And we see here the fail, and we see that something happened. And again, this is an error that we trigger for the demo. But this is the moment that we start to open new set of scenarios, new set of conversations. Why? Because we have the chance right now to move forward. We have everything here. We have an application that is capturing user intent. I have user information. I have the user history. I have the logs. I have what is happening with the semantic search, the intents, and more. How about if we put all this together? How about if we pick up all of these signals and we create, again, using AI, kind of we have two features here. Analyze the signals in real time so we can see what's happened and how we are working, and also create a report. And these are not signals like the one that we have in Azure Monitor, where we can see the traces and we can see HTTP requests and more. These are business signals, the way that this is built. And how we are going to do this, let me switch to another scenario and start Aspire there. So let's go here to our code. Let's go here to Aspire, and let's do Aspire stop. I'm going to stop this instant. I'm going to go to scenario 15, source code, clear, and let's do Aspire start here. And what is the main difference that we have here? While this is starting, let's take a look at some code. So the scenario 15 is the one that has the store intelligence report. The main difference that we are going to have here is that the store intelligence is going to be a separated instance. It's going to be kind of an agent running in a web API that is going to trace and work everything. It's not part, as we've seen before, of the core backend. It's a different backend. Why? Because we want to publish as an agent later. Once we have the store intelligence, there are a couple of things here. Of course, it's going to load the intelligence service. Is going to this one is working with the cloud. It's going to load the GPT-5 Mini. It's going to load the text embedding, and then it's going to start to work in the intelligence endpoint. And what we have here is let me open the signal. What we have here is once we have the signals that we are collecting, and this is open also in a thread-safe environment, so you can receive requests from different places at a different time, so it's working very, very, very well. We can have a service that is going to, using the chat client, is going to generate insights about this. How this is working, let's take a look. So let's go back here and let's open this instance. So as we've seen before, what we have here is the store, the products, and we have intelligence. We didn't have this in the past. If we open the store, this is literally the same. I can go here, something for a rainy day, or do you have something to cook at night? Let's see if cook at night, what is going to give us. But while this one is doing this, we have the other service in the back analyzing all of the information, all of the signals that we have. So if we go back here and to open the intelligence, we are going to see two entry points here. We are going to see that we have raw signals and a report. What is going to do the signals in real time? We are going to have the chance to refresh the signals, and we've seen that there are some events that already happen here where I can go and see, hey, hiking questions, they are grouped by terms, they are grouped kind of by category. So analyze everything that's happened at the business level, at the application level, and it's going to say, hey, you know what? I have this hiking booth. Oh, this one didn't return everything, and we are doing keyword search. Keyword search. Semantic search for hiking socks, Merrie. Yes, we have some answers here. We also have an example for rain questions. We have a mix here between Spanish and English. We have here lluvia, chaqueta de lluvia, which is a rain jacket. This is the one that I think we ran before because we are sharing some information here and more. So we have everything that we need here. And if we refresh the signals, the new one that we have, cook at night, will be, I don't know, probably is going to camp questions, no, or stop questions, no. In one of these is going to, or rain questions, is going to be somewhere here because it's related to this. Let me take a look at the output here. What do we have for cooking? Capping cookware. The other options is to go to the report and say, hey, you learn all of this about my applications and my user. They are asking about this and that. I summarize, I have these trends here for these topics and these other kind of insights. Generate a report of this. And again, using an LLM, in this case, an LLM in the cloud, I will have some insights about what to do. And again, we didn't add anything into the app, just pick up information that we have related to searches, logs, and more, and we started to generate, and we started to get insights from that. This takes some time. This is going to do it's going to do a deep report of this, and once we have the stored intelligence report, we can see that, hey, we analyzed 27 signals, we had a product gap, people are asking for hiking boots, and someone asked for a raccoon garden statue. That was me, sorry about that. And then we have top customer intent, search with no results. Hey, This is a prompt that analyzing the information give us, using the model, give us the first step to get some insights about how people are using my application, how people are using our storage. And this is interesting on the sense that, hey, we can start to do smarter business signals. And if we have an application that can provide information, provide some features, and have some functionality, of course, the next step will be, hey, I may want to publish some of my features of my application as an MCP tool, in example. And one of the other sections explains how to do MCP. And the cool part about MCP is that we have a very cool search feature, in a very cool SDK in C# that allows us to expose services as an MCP when we have a server, or consume as a client those services. And it's very, very easy to do and very, very easy to understand. We have a scenario here, the 16, that basically show this. You can take a look at the code. We already talked about MCP, and this is a nice one. But the next step when we talk about these activities is, okay, we have our tool, we have our scenario. Now we move forward and we start to see how we are going to work. How we are going to put it all together. So MCP is the pieces that basically allows us to provide, to expose tools and more. Agent is when we pack something all together and we start to put it there. So I can pick up, in example, my observability functionality and expose this as an agent. Or I can pick up the features that I have in this new business insight website and expose this as an agent. And the interesting part is that if we started to do this, we can expose our services as an agent. The agent will be smart to interact also with other agents. And this is the moment that we need to start to talk about new concepts for us. Like an example, the orchestrator. In this scenario that we have here, scenario 17, we are going to have 3 agents: catalog agents, observability agents, and the business insight, the one that we already seen, very similar. And here, we are going to need to have this orchestrator. Orchestrator, that is the one that is going to combine, depending on the prompt and what we need to do, how to call an agent or how to call one and then the other, or maybe do a different set of agents running at the same time. There are different approaches here. The cool part, Microsoft Agent Framework for C# works really, really well. So let's take a look how this look in real time. So this is the scenario 17. So let's stop this one. Let's go to scenario 17 and also SLC. Let me clear this and let's do a spare start. Let's start this one. In the meantime, what we have here, let's take a look at some code. What we have here in the scenario 17 is we have, of course, we have our store, we have our Aspire calling everything, and we have different services. This is a bigger one than the previous one. Why do we have this? Because the main endpoint, the product, the backend, is going to basically initialize this and is going to get the chat client and is going to start to have a set of agents. It's going to get access to the catalog agent, to the promotion agent, and the business insight agents. With all of this, is going to expose this as a services, and it's going to have an orchestrator. And the orchestrator, let's Guarav here, is going to first provide service to discover these agents. Depending on what you are doing, if you're doing a search, you want to see which agent is the best one to work with your query. Once you have this, it's going to put the messages and it's going to unread the messages so the agents know how to work. And of course, it's one of the agents. Let's open the catalog agent. It's going to be defined like this. Let's get an HTTP client because this is what we need to do. And with that, let's go into create a skill. Let's put a pin here because we are going to go to Foundry anytime soon and we are going to use it there. Once we have agent skills, what we have at the end is something like this. Let's open our application one more time and we can see here that we have a catalog agent, business agent, products, promotion, and we have the store. And if we go here and make a search, like an example, something for cooking using A2A, what we are going to have is a different call where we have some products, we have some more stuff. And if we go here for the traces, we can see here that the full set of calls is different. And we have a lot of calls to products. Then we have the inventory check, the active promotion, that's probably for the promotion agent, the business agents. They are all collaborating, all working together. And why this is important? Remember that I told you about Foundry, because if we go back to Foundry and we take a look at the Foundry scenarios. I have here, this is the instance that I am using right now for Foundry, where I have my GPT-5 mini model, I have my text embedding model, and I have created a couple of agents. But the interesting part is that the agents, once we have an agent, the agent, when we go to details, and this is in preview, but it's going to be enabled soon, can be configured to have a two-way protocol. So you can expose an agent to interact with other agents using agent to agent. And this is amazing. You pick up your code and you expose it to have it there. This is crazy, crazy good. At the same time, if you want to connect to other agents, we can go to tools in Foundry and create a new tool, connect a new tool, go to custom, go to agent, and when we create and we connect to another agent, what we are going to need is the endpoint of the agent and the agent card path. So it's literally two, and of course, we need to define the authentication. We can be key-based or OAuth or Microsoft Entra. Please use Entra if you're if you're working in Foundry, but we have everything here. And you're probably asking, okay, and how hard is to expose a web API in C# as an agent? Lucky as Aspire make it really, really simple. Because here in Aspire, let me go to Ascend 17, and here we have the Foundry hosted agent command line and fixes, and in our APB host, we can pick up, and they're using a sample where they create a Python application, but this is saying, we can say, hey, expose this as a hosted agent. So when we publish this, it's going to be published as a hosted agent to the cloud. And this is super fast and super simple to do. And hey, with all of this, we basically cover a lot of scenarios, a lot of things to do. We have agent that starts locally, your code that can be packed as an agent, and you can run and evaluate and do everything locally, and then move those to the cloud. You can have, if you want, the full path of productions when you add all of these smart features here and there to basically provide an application, and Aspire make this very, very easy to provide an application that can run with Docker, Kubernetes, Azure Container Apps, and more. It's very, very easy. And also at the same time, this is important because we have the chance to basically improve stuff that are difficult today for us when we do applications, like logs, in example, make it search more user-friendly, make a custom glue when we use MCP to external services, and more. Do a lot of stuff. And of course, when we start to move to our features to become exposed at agent, that is a lot of we are going to win there. So we get to the end, and the whole idea here is that, hey, we pick up our app and we did the modernization part, and it's not just this. We can do a lot more, and finding this small scenario, playing with local AI, with AI in the cloud, with MCP, with agents, with the skills and more, this is what we really is going to also help us to have not just an application that has been modernized, it's also an application that is smartest, and it runs really well. So I hope you like it. The resources are in the video links. In the video you can find all of the links for the resources and more. Happy to answer any question on the chat or later if you find me. See you all next one. Goodbye.
Oh man, Bruno does such a nice job putting all that together, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, I mean, but as I said to you, Jeff, even like personally, Bruno is a machine. I don't know how he does how many demos he did to a presentation.
I see him answering questions in chat as that was going along there. Thank you so much. Good to see you, Bruno.
Hey, Bruno, you are in Spain. Go enjoy Spain.
Yeah. So, really great that you can take your app once it's been modernized. And Bruno did a real nice job there of defining that the modernization is the beginning of the journey, and this continues because you're going to continue to modernize and add new features and new capabilities to your applications, because the only thing that's constant in this industry is change. Things keep modernizing. There's new features, new hardware, new software, new technologies. You need to keep up with them. Don't fall behind. Take advantage. Be a first mover on these things. It's really good for you and your business. So I hope folks have learned a bit here coming along and diving in a little bit further on some of the tools and features and things that you can do with the technology. Let me head over to the slides and show you once again that link to learn more about Copilot modernization. Right there, aka.ms/copilot-modernization takes you to the front of the documentation, because there's 4 different ways that you can kick off your modernization journey. You can get in, get started wherever it is that you're already working. There's tools right where you are. So VS Code, Visual Studio, command line, even online at GitHub, it's really easy to get started with the QR code right there. We have a community online of folks that are working and talking about this, and we publish information too on LinkedIn. We want to get more folks signed up at our LinkedIn group for .NET developers, linkedin.com/groups/40949. So there's a lot more happening with this product line. And Pablo, I've been blown away by some of the cool things that we've seen happen just over the last 2-3 months, that are growing and changing. Stuff around the dashboard that has been growing in the reports there. We heard about getting cost estimates being added into some of the features that are being built for planning and assessment. It's great stuff. This is a good way for you to bring your technical debt and get current, right?
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things that people need to get is that right now with AI, of course, you can create a lot of not as good as you can code, but that is the power of it, right? If you can use it in a proper way to fix your technical debt, and to even use hybrid methods to try to make sure that some applications will work and make it do the brunt work and you do the smart work, that can be incredible multiplier for how you work and how you build things.
Oh yeah, that brunt work, that toil that none of us wants to do over and over again. Let the AI do it. And
yeah, folks.
In the long run, the AI is going to, even though we may look at how much it costs right now, in the long run, it's going to be cheaper than bringing in and having a team of folks working 3, 6, 12 months on a project. Yep. We'll share those numbers. We've got folks that have details of how things ran as far as tokens, and you're going to see those numbers being added to the features in the weeks and months ahead. So
100%, folks.
We ran a survey during the event.
We did.
And we were giving away some gift cards to the Microsoft Store, $25 gift cards. And we've got 25 winners that I think we can announce.
Okay, Jeff, who wants to announce?
So we grabbed the names that folks submitted in the name field. So we have your email address, so we'll be in touch to give you all the information to redeem your digital gift card. But here's the names of the folks that won our gift cards. And some of them are just first names. That's fine. We're okay with that. But these are the names of folks who have been chosen to receive a $25 gift card. Huge thanks to everybody that submitted some feedback, filled out the survey, and let us know what they think, not just of the event, but also about the product. So you'll be receiving a gift card to the Microsoft Store. Thank you so much for trying.
Yeah.
And we'll be in touch. We'll be sending an email out to you. Maybe it won't be Pablo or I specifically, but we'll be in touch.
100%.
All right. That's all. I think that's all we have for the event. This was a nice day to dive in deeper on the announcements and things that we did at Build, and I'm happy we had this chance to learn more about it.
Exactly. And folks, keep learning about modernization. It changes every single time. It's improving as time goes by. Be ready for more sessions on Agentic Modernization and .NET Day in the future.
Yeah. Click that subscribe button. Click the bell to be notified, because we've got videos coming on the YouTube channel. And we saw about the LinkedIn. We're going to be announcing and sharing things over there as well. I hear the music. I think it's time for us to go.
Okay, folks. See ya.
Thanks so much. We'll see you.